I'd like to call back to order the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education meeting. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. It will be led by Natasha Tarleton from Health Professions High School.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just we have Jay.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you again. I had an opportunity to be with Natasha just a couple days ago at the Student Advisory Committee, where I got to meet her and some of her fellow student activists here. And we're very happy to have you here today, and congratulations. For those of you in the audience, Natasha is a senior at Health Professions High School who dreams of becoming a doctor. We know she'll be a doctor, a dream when she formed at age 10 when her youngest brother was born. She is applying this fall to attend UC Davis, where she hopes to pursue a career as an OBGYN. Attending Health Professions has given Ms. Tarleton the opportunity to be involved with various roles in the district's summer service program, starting as a middle school participant in the summer before her freshman year. She served as an ambassador the following summer, then interned at summer at City Hall. This past summer, she returned as a Sacramento Youth Leadership Program camp facilitator. Her participation in the summer program also gave her the opportunity to speak in front of the Board of Education about her experiences in summer service and how it inspired her to be an active youth participant. Ms. Tarleton is also involved in various school activities that give back to the community, such as participating in blood drives for the last 2 years and taking part in Safe School Ambassadors to help prevent violence on campus. She also started a campus club that gives students community service opportunities. She was recently elected Student Advisory Council Secretary for Sacramento City Unified School District and takes pride in doing her best to make a difference to help her school and her peers. In recognition of your phenomenal volunteerism and district-wide involvement, we are proud to recognize you, Natasha Tarleton, as a Sacramento City Unified School District Stellar Student. So congratulations.
I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm honored to receive this award.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Comcast and SureWest cable systems. Today's meeting will air Sunday, October 20th at 9 a.m. and Monday, October 21st at noon on Channel 14 and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located in the back of the community room and give it to our Chief Communications Officer, Mr. Ross, over here to my right, prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Responses to questions by the public will be posted on the district website prior to the next board meeting. Please limit comments during public comment to items not listed on the agenda. If you are found to be commenting on an item that is on the agenda, you'll be asked to defer until your item comes up on that agenda item. Also tonight we are going to discontinue the practice of yielding time, so everyone will receive 2 minutes but will not be able to yield time to other speakers, but can use the 2 minutes for their own thoughts. Please remember to turn off all cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate. Item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
Yes, President Cuneo, I am pleased to announce that the board, by a unanimous vote with board members Arroyo, Hansen, and Rodriguez absent, have approved the appointment of Cynthia Swindell as principal of Success Academy. And I'd like Cindy to please stand. She's not a stranger to SCUSD, been a teacher As I said, she's been a teacher, an assistant principal, interim principal, as well as now a director in our special education department, which has been really moving forward with our inclusive practices. So we're really excited to have you, Cindy, and congratulations.
Item 6.0, agenda adoption. I will move the agenda.
Second.
Second by Vice President Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The agenda has been adopted. Item 7.0, we'll have a special presentation. 7.1, the Vola Steinberg Mathlete Awards. It'll be a 5-minute presentation, a 5-minute discussion by Dr. Iris Taylor.
Good evening, Board President Cuneo, Superintendent Raymond, and members of the board. My name is Iris Taylor, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction for the district. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Dr. Edward Bradley from Sac State, who will be presenting the Vola Steinberg Award to our 2012-13 mathletes. This award is just a phenomenal award for those students who are high performers in our mathlete competitions. Dr. Bradley?
Hello, my name is Dr. Edward Bradley, and I'm currently the chair of the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at Sac State. And it's actually a great pleasure to come here and give out these awards for Vola Steinberg. When I was first hired at Sacramento State, actually, I used to run the mathletes competition, and this is quite some years ago. And Vola would bring her team down from Kennedy High School, and they'd invariably win the competitions because they were so well trained. She was such an excellent teacher, and so we always look forward to having her come in every May when her school would arrive and do extremely well. So in terms of mathematics, I mean, it is one of the most challenging subject areas that we have out there, and so having awards like this certainly encourages students to go forth into the subject area. I think it's a subject area that's somewhat undervalued these days. People seem to think that it's not terribly important and don't fully understand the ramifications of the subject in areas of science, computer science, engineering, and so on. So I'm pleased to be able to present these awards, hoping that it will encourage students to actually work harder at mathematics and to basically be a bridge, a building, a stepping stone for people who are wanting to go into the sciences in the future. Anyway, let's look forward to the recipients.
Thank you. So before we call the students, I'd like to just recognize the teachers who sponsor the Mathlete programs and the hard work and dedication that they exhibit to those students to prepare them for the competition. And then also the parents who support their students to stay after school, just work hard and study hard to perform in the competition. So if we could give them just a round of applause for their work. So the awards for high school, and these are the top scores in the district by campus. We have Itzel Morales from John F. Kennedy, and Itzel graduated, and so Vicki Felice, who's the sponsor for Mathletes, will accept the award on her behalf. We have Jason Kim from West Campus. Thank you. So each of those students received $100. But our top scorers in the district by grade level will each receive a $200 award. So for 9th grade, we have Isabel Somoza from John F. Kennedy. So again, the sponsor, Vicki Felice, will accept the award on her behalf. We have Jason Kim from West Campus again, accepting the top 10th grader. We have Kevin Tron from John F. Kennedy, 11th grade award. And for 12th grade, Itzel Morales from John F. Kennedy. Our middle school recipients also receiving $100 from Albert Einstein. We have Jacob McFadder. From Fern Bacon, we have Mason Williams. From California Middle, we have Katie Texera. From Rosa Parks, we have Amy Vang and Taishing Zhang. Sorry if I cannot say that. From Sam Brannon, we have Aaron Wong. From Sutter, Thomas Hall. And from Wilsey Wood, David Vong. Our overall top scores by grade level receiving $200, we have for 7th grade, Philip Kim and Albert Zhang from Sutter Middle School. And for 8th grade, Thomas Hall from Sutter Middle School. Thank you very much.
All right. Very exciting.
Congratulations to all the recipients. 8.0, public comment. Oh, do we have Mr. Ra? Did you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that people are leaving already, but for the students that are leaving that receive the awards right now, can I just get your attention really, really quick? Sorry, I just wanted to say something really quick. You're really an inspiration. I mean, I'm sitting here at the board, and it's been many, 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 many years since I was in school at your age and grade level. I wish that I could have been that kid, participating as a mathlete. And the work that you're doing, it's an inspiration not only to us on the board, but actually, hopefully, for a lot of the students that are watching. Mathematics is such an important component of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and we need so many of the workforce prepared and interested, in STEM fields. And the work that you're doing right now, I think that it's a credit that hopefully we're doing something good in the district, but more than anything, that you are an example to so many more students that hopefully will look up to you as they're coming up and willing to partake in STEM and particularly in math. So I just wanted to say that beyond you getting a recognition right now of a check, just know that the work that you're doing is not going unrecognized, that we're paying attention, and that I think a lot of people are. So keep it up. And if other fellow students are asking, please let them know, feed their curiosity. Hopefully there will be the next round of students that will be coming up next year to receive these awards. Thank you, President Cunha.
We have item 8.0, public comment. Mr. Ross.
We have 6 comments for 8.0. The first 4 comments are from Tim Gergen, Christy Harris, Terrence Gladney, and Anna Molander.
Good evening. My name is Tim Gergen. I'm a member of Genevieve Didion's Save Our School Committee, as well as the School Site Council President and former PTA President. I'm here this evening to present a petition signed by 291 concerned parents and teachers from Genevieve Didion School. Hopefully you have it up there. The petition requests restoration of SLIB funding at Didion to 2009-2010 levels, requests the district to review our school improvement and development plan prior to creating the local control and accountability plan, and requests our board member, Mr. Wu, to hold a community meeting with district officials to discuss funding issues as well as the local control funding formula. And I'm hopeful that the budget forum scheduled for next week at Didion will satisfy that request. I also wanted to relay my shock when I looked at the 2012-13 school carryover balances. First, I'd like to explain that Didion's reported carryover amount of roughly $12,000 is somewhat misleading. Our carryover consists of nearly $10,000 in PTA money and some other items. Thus, the $12,000 or so on paper translates to $968.71 we can actually use on student improvement. As for the carryover amounts at other schools, the ones that stood out were Ethel Phillips, a carryover of about $150,000, which is 3 times what we used to receive in SLIB funding. Father Keith B. Kenny, which was $363,000, or 5 times what we used to get. And the most appalling was Oak Ridge at almost $750,000 of funds they didn't spend, which is about 15 times what we used to receive. You realize that would fund us for 15 years. So Didion has received no funding, SLIB funding from the district this year, and no one I've spoken to believes this is fair or equal treatment for our children. With these petitions and testimony here today, I and the parents of Didion again request SLIB funding restoration to 2009-10 levels, and I and probably a couple hundred parents look forward to discussing these funding inequalities at the district budget meeting next week. Thank you for your time and consideration. And real quickly, I looked at the school website, and your motto is putting children first. I know the parents at Didion don't believe that. And so, again, please restore our funding so we can at least operate at a basic level. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Christy Harris, PTA President at Crocker Riverside. I'm here tonight in support of the students and parents of Genevieve Didion. While I'm not a parent at Didion, I do have a cousin that's a teacher there, as well as 5 nieces and a nephew that attend school there currently. So I do have a vested interest in their school. Like Crocker Riverside, Didion is not entitled to receive federal funding, which means they too lack the funding needed to cover the most basic resources throughout the school year. Once again, I urge you to consider balancing the scales so that schools like Didion and Crocker Riverside that do not receive federal funding can keep pace with those that do. Thank you for your consideration.
Make sure that 2 minutes. Good evening, President Cuneo, Superintendent Raymond, and Board. I'm Terrence Gladney, President of Sacramento Council of PTAs. I'm here just very briefly to first and foremost congratulate the parents who started the current cohort of the Leadership Academy, which has been a partnership between the district and PTA. I believe this is the 6th year. This year, when two more returned to the district, her vision was to have 3 cohorts. So the first one is actually taking place Monday evenings at Hiram Johnson. And I want to congratulate those parents as well as the efforts of New Leon, who's been instrumental in really reshaping the curriculum, engaging us at PTA and making sure there's representative and reflective of the participants. I also wanted to invite all parents, especially those in the McClatchy Network, to a jointly co-hosted social and emotional learning forum, which is going to take place on October 29th at 6 p.m. at Health Professions High School. Sacramento Council of PTAs and PTA as a whole has always supported the whole child and the social and emotional well-being of children, and making sure that we nurture all the needs of children, both through our actions and programs as well as through legislation. It's a great opportunity for those schools in that first cohort, as well as future schools who may participate in the initiative, to come out and learn from those parents, administrators, and staff at those schools who are already implementing the initiative. And we also invite all parent leaders, whether it's site councils, DAC, CAC, ELAC, PTA, PTO, to come out to our general meeting, which will immediately follow at 7 p.m. And it's really an opportunity for us to go through the basics of positional training for presidents, treasurers, secretaries, and so forth, but in a really engaging fashion. We have the training materials up on our website for review and absorption prior to the meeting, and then hopefully we can have an honest and candid discussion about the real life experiences of parents in those positions, and we can, share our experiences and our learning across the board for everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Anna Molander. I'm the chair of the 7-Eleven committee that is repurposing the 7 elementary schools that were closed earlier this year. On behalf of the committee members, I want to say thank you for this opportunity to serve. I want to make sure that everybody on the board knows that we did have one member who resigned the committee, and I believe that a letter of resignation has been submitted by her. It was Kay Neprath. Mostly I'm here because we're having some issues, and I want to make sure that we're updating you regularly about what we're doing. It's a phenomenal experience, but we need to fix these hitches if we're going to do our job that you've asked of us. The first and foremost, we're meeting every single Monday. From the day that we first met, we've now had 4 meetings beginning September 24th. We've met at 2 different school sites so far. We've met at CB Wire and CP Huntington. Next Monday, we'll be meeting at Fruit Ridge. On Monday the 28th at Joseph Bonheim, Monday the 4th at Maple, Tuesday the November 12th at Mark Hopkins, Monday the November 18th at Washington, and then we'll have one further meeting on December 5th. My understanding today is that we're not going to be limited to this very short time period as we were first told, that in fact we will be given some additional time to do our work. We're working very hard on this. The members of this committee, everyone it works full time, and so this is a big commitment from them. But we're having some problems that we do need to rectify, and I think these fall into 2 categories. There's a lack of communication and advertising, to be honest, and I know everybody's working hard to change that, and I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Ross on that issue. And then there's lack of information, data, and clear direction from the board about what we are to do. My understanding right now is that you want us to make a land use decision and then seek ideas about what can be used at these sites. So if you have further direction, we would appreciate that. We will hear from legal counsel on Monday regarding how we do make these recommendations for land use and what the parameters of that will be. But one looming issue that hasn't been fixed is the rumor mill. And that's something we all need to think about. I've had a number of community members come up to me, come up to other members of the committee that said, my school's reopening next year, or I've heard my school is going to be this, that, or the other thing. We've only had 2 proposals so far. One was an idea for a site, and another was a more formal presentation. We need to get more information out to the community so they understand what these meetings are about, and that none of these school sites have been predetermined yet as to what's going to happen. Because I think it's going to create more anger and distrust later. So the more that we can advertise, maybe use a different moniker, as Vice Chair Minnick said, you know, when people click on 7-Eleven, they think they're getting a Slurpee. So we need to think of a way to advertise this in a better way so that people understand to come out with their ideas so that we can do the best job possible in making the best use of these facilities and truly a land use decision or a facilities decision for you and offer you the best recommendations we can. So thank you very much for your time. And again, thank you on behalf of everybody on the committee for this honor.
We have, you want to do it now? You want to speak now? So we have Member Arroyo.
Thank you, President Cuneo. And right now that it's fresh, and thank you, Ms. Molander, for coming and giving this update during public comment. This is a very, very important issue, and it's a travesty that you had to squeeze it in 2 minutes during public comment. If the rest of the board would indulge, it would be great to probably add the 7-Eleven committee as one of those groups that come and report every month so that we can get either every meeting or at least once a month so that they have their due time and give us the opportunity to hear from them concerns, ideas, suggestions.
That's a good idea.
So we have them as a standing item on the agenda so that they can come and report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Member Rodriguez.
Actually, thank you, Member Arroyo, for introducing that concept. I was just going to do that myself, but if I can add a friendly amendment to yours and perhaps have a standing item that is information/action in case the board needs to provide some further direction. And this way it allows us to take action, have a discussion, and take appropriate action if needed. We did hear from Ms. Molander that there was a lack of clear direction from the board, and this body as a whole should be deciding on what types of direction our 7-Eleven or repurposing meeting members should be going into. So if we could just add that, not necessarily that we could take action on every single board meeting that it comes up, but that it's available for us to do so.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is not necessarily a motion as much as a recommendation, and
we can't make it anyway. We can't make it tonight, but
yeah, well, exactly. And I would assume that if the 7-Eleven committee comes to a point where there are items for the board for action, then they would probably be put on the agenda, not as a notice as much as an action item or. But I think that could be discussed further down the line. Thank you.
I appreciate. Rodriguez, did you want to say anything else? So I do appreciate the comments, and executive will discuss. I am just at first blush. I think as a standing report, it's a good idea. I'll think more about the action issue, and I'll try to be brief here in the response. But you know. Part of what I like about the 7-Eleven committee is that they're all committed members who know the lay of the land, who know the school district, and I trust them. I trust them to use the intelligence and wherewithal and community contacts to make a recommendation at the end of the day, or a number of recommendations that are going to make sense and that are going to be validated by data and are going to be done through outreach to community members and community organizations. So I hesitate just for now. I'm not saying it's something I won't consider, but for now I hesitate to continually make it an action item and micromanage people who I think have the talent and community contacts to really make the 7-Eleven committee their own and give us the recommendations that they see fit. And I have Member Rodriguez.
Yes, I want to add one more thing, but just to comment on that. I did attend the CP Huntington meeting And I did hear from some of the members on the 7-Eleven committee that they were receiving direction from the executive committee of this board, which I do feel is not appropriate at this time. I don't believe that this board,
Which members?
you know what, I can't recall it at this very moment. I can look over the list of names and then give those names over to you. But I do feel that this board as a whole appointed them. The board as a whole should be the ones who provide any further clarification on which direction that they're going into, not just a few members of the board, especially since we have 2 members on the executive committee that didn't have a school closed in their area. So we need to be sensitive to other board members who did. And so that's my comment on that. And I agree, we're not going to be micromanaging the 7-Eleven committee, but when they certainly need clarification on direction, we need to allow that space for us to discuss and to provide that direction and to make actionable or actionable decisions. But the last thing that I wanted to add, and why I put my light on initially, was the fact that the meeting day and time, it was very difficult for members of the community to attend. I did hear that from several members who were there, and then I had heard that some members that were in attendance, community members, had to leave because it was so early, and they had other obligations. So I know that there was a suggestion from others, from other parent groups, that the meeting days and times be on a day that is more conducive for parents to be free. And then I understand there's the daylight issue. So maybe if the 7-Eleven will allow me to make a recommendation of having their meetings on a Saturday to where parents and children and other community members can attend. That's all.
And I guess this is why I hesitate to make them action items, because this is what I really don't want to be doing. I don't want to be telling them when to meet. I don't want to be telling them what to discuss. And you know, if the leadership of the 7-Eleven committee I trust, and I trust the members in the room to make good decisions and lead their committee as they see fit, with a wide berth to find good results for kids in those communities. So, but we can bring this back definitely as an information item, and we'll have a discussion in regard to the request for an action item as well. And do we have other public comment, Mr. Ross?
We do. We have 4 more public comments on 8.0 from Dale McKinney, Victoria Camargo, Grace Trujillo, and Maria Gutierrez.
Superintendent Raymond, President Cuneo, esteemed board members, I'd like to briefly analyze the predicament we find ourselves in now that we have to find a new superintendent. I hope that we can learn from past experiences on what we should do in determining who our next leader should be. I think it is important that we realize that this is a team effort and that the community has the involvement that it deserves and should be respected for, because many of the community members have been here for years, have watched superintendents and board members come and go, and have experience and the intelligence to have their input in this process respected. So I would like to recommend that you as a board, in choosing your new leader, that you include, that you make this an inclusive process, and that people who've been here, who are stakeholders, are given an opportunity to have some input. One of the things I think we should respect is that as a leader, we want that leader to be pro-public education, not pro-private education. They're 2 separate entities that have 2 separate missions. And I think we also should be careful about where we get our leader from. I would not recommend the Broad Institute candidates to be considered to lead this district in the future based on what they've demonstrated in the past. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Camargo. I'm here on behalf of Pacific Elementary. I would like to invite all of you to our block party that we're having on November 2nd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on 41st Street. We're asking you on behalf of Pacific staff, teachers, parents, and the Avenue Committee. I was supposed to have flyers tonight, but they haven't been approved, so as soon as I get them, I'll email them to you. Sorry about that. We're going to have free food while supplies last. Budget issues. And we're also going to have the Sheriff's Department there. They're going to be raffling 2 bikes, plus we'll have a couple other things that we're going to raffle off that we still have to kind of get. And then there's going to be music from the different schools. We're having different schools come in and bring in some music and some dancing, help the kids out with some credits. Got to help everybody. And then we're also going to have face painting and a couple other things. So I'd like to see all of you there. Thank you.
Good evening, Jonathan Raymond and President Cunio. It's been a while since I've spoken, and I think a lot of it had to do with just to listen and observe. I think the hardest thing was for me, I'm sure like with everybody, was the school closures. And I think one time after a long debate, I think I've hardly ever talked to Mr. Jonathan Raymond and asked him, why are you doing it? Why are you closing these schools? And he simply looked at me and said, Grace, cost of insurance and health care. I'm like, what is he talking about? With that, I went back, and being an auditor that I am, I work backwards. I'm still looking and analyzing, but I want clarity. I think the more you embrace the parents, as I mentioned before, and work with the people, the parents, the principals, everybody in your staff, and be aware of what that means. Those numbers are transparent. People will see. I think the other day we had a meeting for the new funding formula. And I think everybody was talking about these wonderful programs that could be created, but the key thing is money. If there's no money, there's no programs. So as a parent, I think I would like to get more of the lobbyist parents that are sitting in those different schools, Phoebe, Didi, and Crocker. All these parents have lobbyists. Have them get involved and see how it is. Not just lobby at the Capitol, but be part of our meetings, the DAC, the CAC. All those meetings would be an enrichment for them of how to go about presenting and passing these laws. Just like me, here I was an accountant, and I would come to these board meetings and hear costs, this going up, costs, we need repairs and all. You couldn't understand it until you're actually there and working backwards and figuring out solutions. So with that in mind, I ask again that we should all work together and get all the different organizations. I know I was against the PTA at one point, and here I'm the 3rd district treasurer. You know, because I said, floof, they spend most of their time just raising money. But you know what? Their job is to advocate, not to fundraise. Advocacy is the key thing. Imagine, I know in our school, the PTO spent like,
if we could finish up.
Okay, maybe 200 hours raising money. Imagine how much they would if they were lobbying downtown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maria Gutierrez, and I'm a parent at CK McClatchy High School. I'm first here to express my appreciation. Thank you to your staff for attending a meeting this past Tuesday, including Jay Hansen. This meeting was in reference to the unnecessary tearing down of our batting cages. These batting cages were installed in 2012 for approximately $20,000 from the monies raised from the Boosters Club and many volunteer hours from our parents and students. As a result of this meeting, many of the questions that I had and many parents had were answered, that the school did admit that they should have not torn down those batting cages. They did say that the batting cages will be rebuilt, and hopefully before the 2014 season begins, at a cost of $150,000. The monies will not come out of our funding for McClatchy, but it will come from the district. So that was something that was very important to us also. And we also were informed that we would get a public apology in response to the error, to the fact that those batting cages should have never been torn down. The major issue for this problem was communications between the school district and the high school administrators, and not taking into account communication to the stakeholders, the students and the parents. If we had been informed back in March of 2013 when the walkthrough was being done, I'm sure that a lot of parents would have been happy to provide feedback, direction on how we could solve the issue, whatever the problem was with the current issue with the batting cages, so that we could avoid this major cost. We are very disappointed as parents and students, and the community should all be disappointed. The bottom line is that, again, it's please look into your communication protocols so that this does not occur again. You need to restore the confidence to your parents and your students. Review your short and long range goals for sustainability and real improvement in education. Although this has to do with batting cages, I am very disappointed of losing the ability to spend $150,000 that could have been earmarked towards a teacher or a counselor to prevent dropout rates in our district. Thank you.
We have Member Hanson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for your very thoughtful comments and for the meeting on Tuesday evening. There were almost 100 parents there, so everyone had a chance to address the issue, and the district got to say its piece, and I got to be there on behalf of the district and apologize for the way that it was done and the communications. And just an update, we're meeting with the baseball team on Tuesday at McClatchy, so the principal and I are going to be talking to them and following through with the commitments that we made and moving forward and having continual communication. So thank you for being here and for your comments.
No more public comment. Okay. Item 9.0, the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve, or does anyone want to make any comment?
Move to approve. Second.
A motion to approve by Vice President Kennedy, a second by Vice President Wu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda has passed. 10.0, Board Workshop, Strategic Plan, and Other Initiatives. 10.1, 2012-2013 District Data Report by Teresa Cummings. It's an informational item, 45-minute presentation, 15-minute discussion.
I'm going to wait for my team to get up here. Good to see you. President Cuneo, Superintendent Raymond, board members, thank you so much for letting us come here tonight to talk with you about our district data. I'm here with Ms. Penny Schwinn. She's the director, or she's the Assistant Superintendent of Performance Management, and Dr. Greg Sampson, who is our new Director of Assessment, Research, and Evaluation. We are here to provide you with the overview of the Sac City Unified School District assessment data. We also will be speaking with you about common trends that we found, as well as examples of best practices. We'll also look at some of our challenges and how we'll continue to push for high quality education throughout Sac City, despite the dramatic cuts that we've been taking year after year. Dr. Greg Sampson will go over the California Accountability System. And then Penny Schwinn will talk to you about the data trends.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
So I'm not sure how to advance slides. You'll do that? All right, excellent. Thank you, Teresa. All right, so there are basically 4 kinds of assessments that are used in the California accountability frameworks. The first, of course, are the CSTs. These are the ones that we all know about, hear about all the time. And those are the ones that are used for basic, content area assessments and also for well, basically, yeah, just reading, writing, mathematics, science, history, social sciences, that sort of thing. We also have 3 other kinds of assessments that we use in the state: the California Modified Assessment, the California Alternative Performance Assessment, and then standards-based tests in Spanish. So those other 3 also contribute to our accountability frameworks, and we just wanted to point that out. So the goal is for, of course, every student to reach a proficiency level, and that's the idea, that we want to advance teaching and learning so that every child is proficient in the skill level that they need to have. And those proficiency levels, the way that we identify them is we actually take each assessment that's given and determine whether a child falls into one of 5 categories. The lowest category, of course, is far below basic, then moving up to below basic, then proficient. That's the goal for every child, and then advanced. The basis of these 5 proficiency determinations, if you will, is actually what is the driving factor in the entire academic performance index. So API is, in fact, a function of every one of those 5 determinations that are made for each student that is taking an assessment. The Academic Performance Index was created by the Public Schools Accountability Act, and I'm sure we're all familiar with that, and it is a single number that is assigned to a school ranging from 200 to 1,000. And 800 is the target for all of the schools. What it does is it evaluates students that are moving towards the proficiency level. So it's very sensitive to a student's growth, essentially. It takes how they did from the previous assessment, looks at how they did in this assessment at that school level, and then creates a metric that tells you basically whether you're moving kids forward or whether you're keeping them kind of the same or whether they're falling below. That's basically what the API metric is. In some ways, it's very intuitive, and in other ways, it's very complex. So there are certain things about it that just make a lot of sense. Like if I said, hey, this is, a child moving from below basic to proficient, we would all say, yes, that's good. Children should get more credit for that. Schools should get more credit for that. But what happens is where the complexity comes in with API are the way that it's weighted and ranked across content areas and grade levels. So not all of the assessments that are produced from our CST results are created equally in the API metric. There is actually differences in them. And I can give a couple of examples for that. So one of the things that comes up when we're talking about API is that there are instances where schools make gains in proficiency and they still lose points in API. That is because API takes into account all 5 of the levels of proficiency. So if I'm at a below basic level and I fall to a far below basic level, then that counts against me in API, and my API metric is going to go down. And there were a couple of examples of that in your data tables that we provided to you. So there's a summary of overall achievement trends and a couple of the schools where that occurred at. One was Hiram Johnson. There was definitely a 1% increase in ELA, and they stayed the same in mathematics, and in fact their API decreased 3%. So that is likely a function of the way the Casey assessment factored into that. The Casey assessment counts for about 60% of the weight of API gains in the 10th grade. So when you have a large number of 10th graders taking an assessment like that, then it tends to basically lower your API result, despite the fact that you may see actual gains in the proficiency levels. So that's one of the things that's really important to take away. Similarly, Edward Kimball Elementary had the same phenomenon, and we can, share that with you as well, that's precisely what happens. Is that, of course, they're at elementary school, so they're not taking the Casey, but it's just that as students are moving up or down in those lower bands of proficiency, that gets factored into API as well. So I think that's our message. The other thing that's really important is that because we have this kind of complex accountability formula, it's very important to look at kind of multiple points of data or multiple sources of data as we're making determinations about how schools actually do. Certainly proficiency is one of them, and proficiency along with API is another one. It's just, we have to look at the whole picture. So I'm going to now turn it over to Penny, and she's going to walk through our results.
Good evening. Over the next 5 slides, we'll be looking specifically at the proficiency status for different grade level bands. So on the first slide, I'd like to point out it reflects an average of all of our tested grades in the district for the 4 core content areas: English language arts, mathematics, science, and history, social sciences. So consistent with the trends that we've seen across the county and certainly across similar districts in the state, there was a small decline in the overall proficiency as well as in the API. We had small decreases of 2 to 3% in 3 of the 4 core content areas, but we also had a slight uptick of 2% in history, social sciences. On this slide, we're taking a closer look at the actual number of schools that increased or decreased in the 4 core content areas. A specific breakdown of the proficiency levels by subgroup is in your board packet. It's also available in the back for the public. As indicated on the previous slide, the majority of schools declined in English language arts and mathematics. However, we did have slightly more schools increase in science proficiency and just over 2 times the number of schools increase in history, social sciences than those that dropped. One of the more interesting pieces of data is highlighted in that science section. On the previous slide, we saw that the average proficiency in the district went down by 2%. However, 3 more schools increased in science proficiency than those that fell. This is because the total improvement in proficiency by the 39 schools who increased was actually just slightly less than the total decrease in the proficiency of those 36 decreasing schools. And then similarly, if you look at the mathematics results, even though twice the number of schools dropped than those that increased, the overall proficiency dropped by a relatively small 2% across the district. However, what we're noticing is it demonstrates that more schools dropped, but not by as much as those schools that increased. And so the raw numbers is actually really important to look at and not just the average proficiency levels. Taking a closer look at elementary student proficiency levels, we have our elementary schools in the blue, and then we have K through 8s, but just the elementary school grade levels in the red. In our traditional elementary schools, we had 49% proficient in ELA in 2012 and 46% proficient in 2013. In elementary school, our K through 8 schools were 56% proficient in ELA in 2012 and were 49% proficient in 2013. In mathematics, our traditional elementary schools were 59% proficient in 2012 and 56% proficient in 2013, whereas our elementary age students in our K through 8 schools were 57% proficient in 2012 and 53% proficient in 2013. And this is pretty indicative of the overall trends that we're seeing between traditional elementary schools and our K through 8 elementary school grades, which is that our K through 8s do slightly better in ELA and our traditional elementary school students do slightly better in mathematics. Looking at our middle school data, we're seeing similar trends. Our traditional middle school students do slightly better in mathematics, whereas the middle school grades in K through 8 do slightly better in ELA. We're seeing a slight drop in ELA in in ELA, 55% in 2012 and 51% in 2013. And then in our K through 8 middle school grades, we had 52% in 2012, which dropped to 49% in 2013. If we're looking specifically at mathematics, we had 49% proficient in 2012 and 51% proficient in 2013 for our middle schools. And for middle school grades in K through 8, 42% proficient in 2012 and 41% proficient in 2013. Again, similar trends. We're seeing differences between the K-8 middle school grades and the traditional middle schools, although we do see that our K through 8 middle school grades tend to do slightly better and in some cases significantly better in science as well as in history, social sciences. And then finally, looking at our high schools, we did relatively well, especially when we compare to similar districts across the state and in our county. We did see a slight increase in English language arts proficiency, which is not the trend, whereas our math remained relatively flat. Again, that's significantly better than some of the districts that we've seen comparatively across the state. In science, we had a 4% dip, but in social sciences, we had a 4% uptick. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Greg. He'll speak a little bit about high school metrics, including the KC as well as our API.
So like I mentioned earlier, the KC is a pretty critical measure of a high school's API. And really, the truth of the matter is that it can count, like I said, for about up to 60% of the API that's attributed to 10th graders. So its result is very important in our understanding of a high school's performance relative to the California Academic Accountability System. The KC proficiency rates this year in both mathematics and in English language arts decreased 4% across the board. So we saw 82% proficiency in math last year, 78% proficiency in mathematics this year, and then 80% proficiency in math or in English language arts last year, and 76% proficiency in English language arts this year. So moving on to graduation rates, there are a couple of important things to know about the graduation rates. CDE, the way graduation data is calculated in our state, we actually have kind of three classifications of students. We have students who graduate, we have students who drop out, and we have a group of students who are considered others. And those are students who go on to get their GED. Those are students who are staying enrolled past their senior year in high school for credit recovery. And those are also students in special education programs who are eligible for things like transition services. Those other students do not get factored into the graduation rate or the dropout rate, which is why your graduation rate and your dropout rate doesn't ever equal 100%. So basically this year we did see an uptick in the graduation rate. 79.9% of our students graduated. And when I say this year, I'm actually referring back to 11-12 data. The 13 data hasn't been released officially from CDE yet. So I just want to make sure we're clear about that. And then also the the dropout rate decreased from 18% to 11.5%. So that is certainly a positive outcome. All right, and then moving on to API, 20% of our schools actually demonstrated positive growth on the API indicator, which is very important considering many of the downward trends across the state of California on this API metric. So you can look right at this list in your slide, Maple Elementary plus 57, Father Keith B. Kinney plus 45. It's organized for you. I will not read it off, but there it is. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Teresa.
So our CDIP process, now what do we do with the data? The CDIP process allows us to answer the question, how will the data be used to inform instruction? As you know, CDIPs are brought to you every year from all of our sites. Principals, along with their data teams, gather data, they analyze, they reflect, they look for big messages in the data, they look for common themes, and they identify 2 to 3 priorities. Those priorities are then funding allocations are put towards those priorities. They merge actions, create timelines, they design evaluation processes and structures, and then implement, review, and evaluate once again. Currently our principals are in communities of practice called networks. The networks are vertically aligned to foster pre-K through 12th grade communication. In these network meetings, the principals go over their data presentations and their CDIPs to look for common patterns amongst the feeder schools. And then they bring those problems of practice and they talk about them and how can they help each other. It's what we ask teachers to do in the common planning time, and they're sort of doing the same thing in the principalships as well. And as I said, we have ours in a feeder pattern. Using the CDIPs for that peer-to-peer communities of practice really helps the document become like a live document as opposed to just sort of a hurdle that you have to jump over and then it gets put on the shelf and nobody looks at it again. And that's definitely not what we want to happen. The one thing that we did implement this year that's a little bit different is we have lead principals in our networks. And so those lead principals actually come to and meet with us at the district office so that we can help them through any challenges they might be having, but also learn what's going on, just more to allow for more communication. It also reinforces the use of the data inquiry process to inform teaching and learning. It's how we get better at a site as well as at the district level. Getting better. So we'd like to invite, one at a time, we'll invite the 3 principals that are on your screen. Mrs. Elizabeth Fihos from California Middle School, Susan Higgins from John Morris Therapeutic Center, and Gail Johnson from Father Keith B. Kinney. These are some of our high flyers. When we analyze the data, we like to take a positive deviance look at it and not just kind of look at our challenges, but also look at what went well. And are those themes, those practices, those initiatives that are in the school that went well, are they scalable across the district? So we'd like to give you principal reflections, if Ms. Vigil could come up for me.
Good evening. So a couple of the things that we think had a positive impact, although not what we wanted to achieve, but first of all, the focus on social and emotional learning, that kind of umbrella approach to supporting the whole child, I think really made a difference for us. We decided as a staff to focus on, because of the demands of Common Core and the shifts for students, to really work on collaboration skills because kids are working so much together. So we developed some language frames to help students to talk to one another, to be able to agree, to disagree, to elicit more information from one another as they wrestle with text and answer difficult questions and kind of take stock in being responsible for their own learning. So that was one of the focuses for us in the realm of social and emotional learning. Also, our PBIS, our Positive Behavior Support Plan, school-wide, we believe was huge. If you talk to any of our staff, they will say that probably made more of a difference than anything, because day one, we have a rally and there are lesson plans for the entire teaching staff, so every student in the school receives the same message about how to behave in all different areas of school. So there isn't a litany of things that you can't do, but actually a litany of things that you should do in order to be successful. And every student hears exactly the same thing. So at the end of day one, we have literally reached every student on the campus, and we celebrate that and make it very positive. And students love it, staff loves it, and immediately the climate, you can feel it walking onto campus literally at the end of that first day. Nothing's perfect, but it has really helped impact what we're able to do in the classroom. The alignment piece, I think, has been big. The alignment through PBIS, the alignment of expectations for behaviors, for teacher behaviors as well as student behaviors. We've been working for a couple of years to really be more aligned in what we expect our kids to do. And the teachers all have, and I really say all, we don't have any outliers at this point, they all feel responsible for all kids. And they are all mutually supportive of one another in trying to figure out how to best support our students. And that's been a big shift for us over the last couple of years. Alignment of curriculum. Every teacher on our campus meets weekly in collaborative teams, PE, every content area, and they are planning instruction, looking at the Common Core shifts, figuring out how to better serve kids, looking at data, revising their instruction, and that's been really huge. We don't want instruction to be different from room to room. We want all kids, no matter who they have for language arts or history, to get the same quality program. So again, it's a work in progress, but everyone is meeting and having these collegial conversations, and that's been a big shift. And finally, inclusive practices. We love that structure. We have co-teaching in language arts and math and aid support in history and science, so that students with IEPs are in the general ed classrooms, and there's that interdependency among our teachers. They rely on one another. They are collaborating literally constantly to figure out how to really meet the needs of all kids. And everyone feels responsible. No one talks about my kids or your kids. Everyone is talking about our kids. And that's been really, really big. And our teachers are working harder than ever, but they're more excited about what they're doing than ever before. So those are some things we think have made a positive difference for us.
Thank you, Mrs. Vigil. Now I'd like to introduce Mrs. Susan Higgins from John Moores Therapeutic Center.
Good evening. I would just, first of all, like to explain a little bit about my school because it's very unique. John Moores serves students who meet the criteria of emotionally disturbed, and we pull students from across the district. Many of our students not only have emotional disturbances, they also have learning disabilities, speech and language impairments, cognitive delays, medical and or psychological diagnoses. Our program focuses on both the social-emotional learning of students along with a strong academic program. As Ms. Vigil was talking about the collaboration of staff, we also have a very strong, united staff. And I think the most important thing is our belief system about our particular students. The philosophy that we have that we hold dear is that if our students could do well, they would do well. And that sounds very interesting, but it has created a more positive adult attitude towards our students. We recognize that their challenging behavior is a form of developmental delays and that students are often challenged in the areas of flexibility and adaptability. We also recognize that our students have problems. That's why they're at our school, and our goal is to teach them to handle issues without using violence or showing maladaptive behaviors. Some of the programs that we have put in place to meet those social-emotional needs is collaborative problem solving. And collaborative problem solving is the first step to really listen to the student and getting the student's point of view and giving the student an opportunity to share his or her thinking. A lot of times we find that there's misperceptions, and we're able to work with the student in the misperceptions that they see. We define the problem from the adult point of view, and then we brainstorm solutions. So the student has to be actively involved in the solution, otherwise it's adult directed, and it doesn't work. The next thing that we have is conflict mediation. More than not, there's a conflict with another student. Sometimes it's with staff, but more often with another student. So we work very strongly in clearing any misconceptions or misunderstandings between students, which leads us directly into restorative justice. And restorative justice is how are you going to make it right with the person that you have harmed, be it a teacher or be it another student. And there's always a course of action that the student agrees to and follows through on. Another strong program that we have is called mindfulness therapy. The benefits from this program are increased self-awareness, improved impulse control and empathy, increased emotional regulation skills, improved cognitive skills, decreased stress and anxiety, especially in testing, and reduced violence. The other hallmark for us is that we use data every day, and we always analyze what's going on with students. We're looking for patterns and trends with our students. We put interventions in very quickly to help our students who are in crisis. We look at our system's strengths and weaknesses and make adjustments on a regular basis. While our API scores increased greatly, and we're thankful for that, our real success is the evidence in the decrease of at-risk behaviors of our students. When we decrease those behaviors and improve self-regulation, our students are able to attend to the academic program in the class. This is the best measure of our success. Thank you.
Her API score went up 122 points. Now we have, last but definitely not least, Mrs. Gail Johnson from Father Keith B. Kinney.
Good evening, board members, President Cuneo, Superintendent Raymond. I am Gail Johnson, once again the proud and privileged principal of Father Keith B. Kinney Elementary School. I'm sure you know that Keith B. Kinney is located in an underserved community, and we are 100% Title I, but our foundation is built upon a belief system that we know all kids can learn. It's not just something that we say. We believe in building students up, Everything we do is about building them, not breaking them. They do something wrong, we find a way to teach them, hold them to high expectations, but never discourage students. One of the biggest things that we find, especially in our communities, is students are often broken and discouraged. And that's one thing that we cannot, will not do at Father Keith B. Kinney. As I look at what we can say are some of the variables that are attributed to our success over the last 4 years, I'm sure you know that we went from 630 and we reached a mark of 813, and I say that again humbly because we have a long way to go. We do not have 100% of our students proficient or advanced. We do know it's more than just the numbers, but that is an accomplishment for our great staff, our parents, our students, and our community. And so I want to bring that to everyone's attention in case you didn't know, because we have found that a lot of people don't have the right information about Keith B. Kinney. As I sat through the school closure meetings, some of the things I heard were painful, and I wish they were about me and not about my students. But there were things said about my students that should never happen. So I am really adamant and serious about getting the word out about our community and what all students can do, regardless of where they live, regardless of their family income. That is critical to student success and building students up. With that said, we carry on this work with a group of committed individuals. Our teachers really are the best. I give them all the credit. They have stayed the course. They have believed in the mission, and they have done everything they can to give their best every single day. Do they get tired? Do they see the challenges? Of course. But they stay the course, and they know how important this work is. We focus on the whole child. Again, we have the numbers. We know the data is important. Academic achievement is important. If we're going to change life circumstances, we must prepare our students for the real world. They must be prepared for college and career. So again, with that, that foundation is the whole child. Believing in the child, inspiring the child, encouraging the child. Talking with parents, building relationships, that is so key. I think everyone agrees. Building relationships is the foundation. With that, again, as my colleagues have said, deep collaboration between teachers and administrators, and we have strong teamwork. We've had so many different challenges with family members, with staff, students, CONCAP, just you name it. But teachers always step out to help someone else out. They'll want to take on extra students. Anything that's needed, they are willing to do. And sometimes I kind of feel bad asking them, and I make it really clear. Please let me know if this is going to be difficult. I don't want to cause you any problems. We support our teachers as much as we can. I would do anything for them. They're always willing. I love going to work. They're always willing to face the challenge. And believe me, as you all know, there are many challenges. Teachers meet regularly, once or twice a week, all year to collaborate and discuss practices, strategies, data, school initiatives, and to plan. We know that collaborative time for teachers to undertake and then sustain school improvement is critical. You know, we just can't meet every now and then. And then it builds that teamwork. And teachers feel better, all of us, I feel better, when you have someone to share with, to get ideas with, because none of us has all the answers. And no matter how good anybody thinks they are, you can never, ever do it alone. We set clear goals and targets for student achievement. We have ongoing support and guidance to teachers to improve teacher capacity and develop teacher leaders. Many of our teachers attended the Common Core sessions last week and this week. Today, we had them present. A couple of our teachers who never used technology had PowerPoints. So a few other teachers who were supposed to go today decided, I think we'll go Monday. We have to step our game up. So we have that kind of camaraderie, that kind of challenge, that kind of competition, friendly competition. And we feel free to take risks because we're not in a judgment zone. So we really work together to improve things. So they really were excited, I must say, about their trainings the last 2 weeks. So it's kind of fun just to sit back and let them do the work and let them do the teaching. We, of course, have high-quality first instruction, instructional rounds, and we're dedicated to continuous improvement. If we don't improve, we can't improve achievement. So we consider ourselves the adults in the place, learners as well as the students. We are a learning environment. KBK is a learning environment. We have many teacher leaders. And, of course, we use data. We can't do any of this without a target. You have to know where you're going. You have to have a map. You just can't do it blindly, not in the case of our students who do not get a second chance. For some students, you got a second chance, third chance, people can bail you out. Our kids don't have that. So there's a sense of urgency that it must be done now. Not tomorrow, it must be done now. We identify the learning center problem. We have enrichment and small group instruction, and that's within our ELA block. We have a 3-hour ELA block every day. The data showed us that we had problems with reading and writing. Our students were struggling. So we have improved, I think, from when I first came in. Our staff has worked hard. We were at 26% proficient in ELA. I think we're now at something like 56, 57%. So they have worked hard. We're helping our students to understand the importance of the hard work. Nothing in life comes easy. So what we say, believe, work hard, achieve. So if you walk around our school, you're going to always say believe somewhere. Some kind of sign is there. We modify schedules. As we continue to look at the data, last year we noticed that we were having some issues with our math achievement. So we changed the schedule. We added 30 more minutes to our math time. It made a huge difference. If I'm not mistaken, we are now at maybe 60 to 70% in math proficiency. That is key. And again, we know it's not just about test scores, but again, that's the measure in which we have used for the last, 10, 12 years. And so our students, once again, have worked hard to match that and to meet that mark. We look at attendance trends. We know attendance is critical. We had a meeting, Mr. Powell, my assistant principal, had a meeting the other night with our parents of students who have been coming a little late. They didn't all like it, but we're trying to catch it before it becomes a problem. And as you know, we have about 140 and 50 new students, and I must say it is going really well. Wonderful, wonderful situation for us. So we want to give you that information. We look at the attendance trends. We analyze areas of strength and weaknesses, and we celebrate success. And that success is not just proficiency or if a student is advanced, it's improvement and it's effort and it's citizenship. So when we have our awards assembly, everybody's walking around with medals. And as I mentioned last year, we have a couple of days we call it Bling Bling Wear Your Medal Day. And we have loads of pictures with kids walking around with 10, 12, 15 medals on their neck, and they walk around proudly. So our kids are proud of their success, and they want to do their best. Are they kids? Of course. That's why they have adults to lead the way. Literacy. Again, we have the 3-hour literacy block. We have a dedicated ELD time. Our English learners are doing very well at KBK. We have common grade level schedules with room for flexibility because we don't want everybody doing something different. So we try to keep things in a common schedule, but then we have room if it's needed. Prep schedules, what teachers' classroom needs may be. So it's not just one size fits all. We have after-school tutoring. And as I told you all last year, I was not going to do Saturday school again, but the kids really wanted. This past year, we averaged 90 students every Saturday for Saturday school. So that has made a difference. We have after-school tutoring, and we did not get SES funds because we exited program improvement in 2011. And I'm going to make this a little short. I'm trying to move quickly here. Again, arts integration, which is critical. The kids love the arts. We've had drama, we've had visual arts, and we've had theater. And we have 12 teachers that's going to work with artists this school year. That has made a huge difference, too. As you know, we have the strings program from Fruit Ridge, and we also have KBK's marching scholars. We have a marching band now. One thing that's big with us is efficacy mindset. Now, we believe that all kids can learn. We believe if you work hard, things can come your way. We do not believe that you are born smarter than anybody else. I tell our students that everybody is born for greatness. Everybody can be a high achiever. Bottom line is we have to work hard, and some students work harder than others. Again, we have a focus on character ed and the whole child. I'm not going to go all into the student and family engagement, but we focus a lot on engagement, home visit projects, family nights, game night, reading night. We have a lot of community partners. And last but not least, I want to make sure we all understand that our staff has a willingness to change and desires to give our best, and our foundation is built upon our mission, our belief system, our mindset, high expectations, relationships, commitment to development and excellence, and a love for our students. And I will repeat that, a love for all of our students. We strive to make a positive difference in the lives of our students and prepare them for college and career every single day. There is no time to waste. We know that a student's zip code or economic status should never dictate one's destiny. This we know for sure. All students should be encouraged, inspired, and expected to give their best and be their best every single day. We don't have low expectations. And the students don't want to have to see me, and my door is always open. Don't want to come my way because they know what I expect. And it's funny, when kids know you care and you love them, they'll do their best. I think last year we may have had 8 suspensions, and they were ones that we just had to, But other than that, we don't send kids home. And I'll tell them, oh, guess what? You get to stay with me all day. So that's not the best thing for them, but it works. And our parents appreciate that we're not trying to send kids home because we need them there in school to learn. And our teachers, again, are willing to work out, take students, and do whatever is needed to keep our kids in school. KBK's continued success is a testament to our teachers, staff, students, parents, and community. We know for sure Together, we will move mountains and create that culture of excellence that we've been working on for the last few years. Once again, thank you very much for your attention and your time.
I probably should have had her go last, but I get to go after her. I just love listening to her talk, so I could have her come back up and just read my notes. No, as you can see, not only with the three principals that just spoke, but also with some of our other high-performing and high-quality schools, there's common themes. The first one, absolutely high expectations, and you heard Ms. Johnson talk about this. The bar should not be lowered because of your zip code. It shouldn't be lowered because of your needs. It shouldn't be lowered because of your social economic status. The only thing that should change is the ladder to get over that bar. We have to respect our children enough, not only love them, not only care for them, but respect them enough to not lower the bar. We have to provide them the resources to get over that bar. And we have to provide not only students the resources, but the teachers and the principals the resources to help support the kids to get over that bar as well. High expectations for all is critical. The other thing that you heard about is social-emotional learning. Social-emotional learning is going on at many of our high-quality campuses, at many of our high-achieving campuses, not just our campuses like Cal or our campuses such as CK McClatchy that are pilot, SEL, but there's the social-emotional learning is still going on, the efficacy, the self-awareness, the self-management, even outside of our SEL pilot schools. It's happening every day. The work that we're doing with CASEL, with SEL, just allows us to really push that work broader and really make it systemic and also bring it to the district. Because social-emotional learning is not just about social-emotional learning of students, it's also about adults. It's how we treat each other in the workplace. It's how we enter our employees. It's how we exit our employees. So we also have to learn from what we're asking the principals to do and the teachers to do at their site. We have to think about ways that we can incorporate social-emotional learning at the district level as well. And then the third common theme that we really see is the data inquiry process, really using data to inform your instruction, and not just at the end of the year, but every day and every week and collaboratively to really use that data to inform where you go so that you know when do you need to provide those resources to students. These are so critical, these three common themes, but really, I would be amiss if I did not add strong instructional leaders. Our principals are so key. Our strong instructional leaders. We also need to provide our principals the opportunity to be strong instructional leaders. So we don't just take a positive deviance look and look at what's going right. We also have to take a look at our challenges as well. We have to analyze, reflect, and then inform where we go the next year. So we took a look at all of our schools that dropped in the API score of 20 or more. We asked them to reflect, we asked them to analyze, and we asked them to tell us about how does this inform what you're going to do in the 13-14 school year. One of the things that they really felt like is the implementation of Common Core state standards. The movement away from the test prep questions and the drill and kill and the movement towards really critical thinking and problem solving they really felt like it showed in a reflection on their scores. They didn't feel as though the CST was a valid reflection of how much their children were growing and thinking. You know, the state superintendent, Tom Torlakson, says that we should be moving towards Common Core. And so we are early implementers, and we'll continue to be that. Along with the Common Core state standards, there's instructional shifts. Some of our sites, they move towards the GLAD, which is Guided Language Acquisition Development, and Balanced Literacy. When sites move instructional shifts, sometimes you take a little bit of a dip because the teachers and the students are kind of getting used into that new teaching and learning. So it's not abnormal to see that. And last, the impact of the fiscal realities. We have taken cuts year after year after year, and they are reflected on our sites. I've been in education since 1992, which I think was just the other day, but this last year was probably the hardest, and we took the biggest hits. And we know that we're going to take another hit, and we know that none of these are excuses, but it will help us identify priorities. The principals really felt like the lack of custodial staffing was a big one for them. It took them out of the classroom where they should be. Along with the custodial staffing, the elimination of key support staff, our clerks, our librarians, our nurses, our APs, our site instructional coaches. They didn't feel as though their teachers or their staff had enough time to collaborate. And the system stress really does lead to tensions, which ultimately impact student learning. None of these are excuses. It's things that we have to look at. It's, practices that we have to determine, what are our priorities and how do we get resources into the right places. So the end of year reflection doesn't just occur at the end of that particular school year. As you know, we brought to you last time some sites, our K-8 sites that had largest declines. So we looked at those sites this year, and we wanted to find out what happened this year. As you can see, some sites did go up, but some sites went down. So we looked at that, and we kind of took a look at it. What do we do for our sites that are continuing to decline? Now what? Well, if we fell under NCLB accountability model, we'd attach another program improvement status year to their label. We would put a 5. We wouldn't put a 6 because we only can go to 5, even though you're in program improvement year 6, 7, 8, 9. We call you year 5 or year 5 plus. More punitive labels, more requirements, no additional support, no resources, all based off a test that a child only has one chance to take. And then, districts in program improvement, they're also required to set aside a large percentage of funding. Ours was about $3.7 million to pay for targeted intervention. Seems a very simplistic approach to a very complex problem. Now, providing tutoring, in theory, is, really good. But in reality, we found that it hasn't worked well for our students. Luckily, we do have the NCLB waiver, and we can use the data that we're seeing right here to not just add another program improvement year to their label. But we can really look at the sites, and the principals and the district can look at providing funding to the students who need it and really determine what's best for each child at those sites. We're also transitioning to a more holistic view that includes critical components of teaching and learning, which is culture and climate and social emotional learning. And lastly, the burden of providing these resources to perpetuating failing sites does not just land on our shoulders. We're actually doing what we're asking our teachers and our principals to do. We have a community of practice as districts now. We ask our teachers to collaborate in common planning time. We ask our principals to collaborate in networks. And now we're collaborating as districts with other districts that are in the same situation that we are. We can learn, we can reflect, we can pair and share, and we can be critical thinking partners. And I think that is really, a positive for our district. So how do we inform system-wide? How do we push out what we know works? How do we get it out to all of our schools across the district? We do know that we need to move on the Common Core state standards. We've been doing it. Dr. Roberts and her team is doing a phenomenal job. But we also have to free up time for principals so that they can be in the classroom and be instructional leaders. High quality first instruction. Getting back to the basics. Are we progress monitoring? Are we checking for understanding? Do we know when the kids leave us that they understood what we were saying? We also have to push more for social emotional learning and make sure that all of our sites are doing data inquiry. We are providing more opportunities for the networks, and I think the lead principals that are coming to the district to help us understand what's going on with the networks, I think that's going to be really critical. I do want to talk about high quality first instruction. This is something that many of our schools do. High quality first instruction it's about a standards aligned objective. Like I said, getting back to the foundations. As you know, in 2011-12, Maple went down, and Mrs. Carrillo, if she was here, she would say that she really took a deep look at what was going on in the classroom. Flashing lights.
It happens from time to time.
So she took a deep look at what was going on in the classroom, and she worked with her area assistant superintendent to determine what do we need to bring in for the year 2012-13. And what they did is high quality instruction. And you know, their API score went up 57 points because of it. And we're really lucky because now Mrs. Correa will be at Bret Hart, who did go down last year. And her and the teachers who know this high quality first instruction will now be working with even more students and more teachers on providing quality education for children. And she wanted to come and speak to you, but she wasn't able to. Also the SEL and providing more support. And really we know that next year is going to be tough again, but when the funding does come back, we need to be really thoughtful and strategic about who we bring back. Our support staffs, our custodians, our clerks, our nurses, our librarians. We need to be thoughtful when that funding source does come back. We'll continue to learn from the Achievement Gap Coalition, as well as the Restorative Justice Collaboration. Now looking forward, our goal is to test all 3rd through 8th grade and 11th grade students in the new field test with SBAC. Students in science will still have to take the written form or the CST and the CMA, and CAPA will still exist in the written form. But next year, we're moving towards taking the Smarter Balance Assessment. We think this is good for our district, and we think it's good for kids. It'll give us an ability to look at, are we ready technology-wise, and do our kids understand what they'll be seeing on the test? Do they have the technology skills to maneuver around the test? And I think that everybody should go online and take that practice test. It is available for adults to take too, because I think it gives you a good idea of what our kids need to do and what our kids need to learn. It is completely different than the paper and pencil one. So we're prepping our kids for that, and we're really looking forward to that. Also, we're working towards the Guide to Success. The Guide to Success will provide sites and the district level departments an opportunity to have a holistic reflective tool and help us really to prioritize and allocate resources. It'll also allow us to have more predictive data, and it'll be our framework for continuous improvement. I also believe that our new community planning process that we're using to vet the Guide to Success will allow us an amazing opportunity to really reach out to all of our stakeholders. We're not asking them to come into the Cerna Center and give us feedback on the Guide to Success. We're actually reaching out to them. We're taking more of the parent-teacher home visit project philosophy and going out into the communities, into where they feel comfortable and into their environments, and we're using our public education volunteers. We're doing that with 3 different cycles. We think it's a more authentic way to reach out and to really grab those non-vocal majority stakeholders. We also believe it'll help us be transparent. You know, transparency is kind of immaterial if what you're posting is in EdSpeak and nobody understands it. So how do you get the information out, and how do you educate your stakeholders, and how do you collaborate together in a way that everything makes sense to each other? And that's something that we're really working through in our new community planning process. I think it's going to be good for us. I think it's going to be a great way to reach out to our communities and kind of build that bridge that, you know, has a few missing slats. We're really looking forward to this One of the things that I think is really critical is just because people don't ask questions doesn't mean that they don't have questions. We have to give them the foundational knowledge, and we have to make sure that it's in a way that people understand it so that they even know which questions to ask. So I think that's really critical. I think with the new community outreach that we believe that the non-vocal majority will have a voice in our new Guide to Success. So questions. So last year our data presentation was over 2 different meetings, a total of 120 slides. So this year we only gave you 24, so I'm sure you have a lot of questions. The area assistant soups are here to talk with you about any site specifics. Dr. Roberts is here to talk with you about any academics. And then we have Ms. Penny Schwinn, who will be here to address any data questions that you have. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have public comment, Ms. Ross?
We have one public comment on 10.1 from Darlene Anderson.
Good evening. Darlene Anderson. Looking at the data hasn't really changed for the African American community. And that's not strange to me, simply because the tools that the district is using, they've sharpened those tools. So by the 9th grade, when a student doesn't make those credits, they are quickly moved to a credit recovery program. And I think they pretty much stay in that credit recovery option until they graduate. That simply does not build the same level of skills that a student would have in the regular education course. African Americans are not graduating, and you're allowing them to graduate, walk with their peers, and receive a high school diploma. That doesn't necessarily mean that they get a job after they graduate. And I think that when smart people work together to do wrong things wrong or right things wrong, it only hurts the community. And it doesn't help the district grow either, because when you look at where African American kids are scoring, they're in the 3 percentile, 20 percentile. It's like frightening. It's not my son, because I understand what the law says. I understand that my child is here to get a basic education, not the best, but a basic, and be able to have a job when he graduates from this district. But not all parents are me, which is a sad thing. Because if they were like me, this district would have been sued a long time ago. Because that's where I see it's a necessity for the African American community, because the district is unwilling to do the work to ensure that all kids receive a basic education. Instead of doing the work, you have moved to ensure that the process is established and kids are streamlined to the alternative programs in this district. And it is a sad day that in 2013, we are still creating an underclass in Sacramento. Thank you.
Thank you. No more public comment? We have Vice President Wu.
Thank you for that presentation. If I wanted to take the Smarter Balanced Assessment, test myself, embarrass myself, where would I find it?
I can send you the link.
Okay. Can you give me
But it's on the web, and it's on the district website.
Can I take the 3rd grade level first and move my way up? So,
I did start the high school math one.
I thank you for all the data. I mean, and you said we were going to get numbers. What would help me in the future and actually today is if you can give us a legend for what all these little symbols stand for.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in the package.
We did send it in a second email to you all. It's on the diocese.
I didn't get that.
Or it's on the diocese. You have it? Okay, good. Do you not have it, Mr.
Okay,
Wu?
I found it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we're going to be needing all this data, and we're going to probably be needing subgroup data as we move forward with the LCFF and the
Absolutely.
LCAP. So I'm glad that we have it. I'm glad we're collecting it,
Yeah.
and we're going to be studying it. and I'm hoping that our community partners will study this information as well as we move forward to prioritize our funding for the next school year.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that we're doing in the assessment research and evaluation shop is we're actually analyzing both qualitatively and quantitatively some of our programs and our initiatives, and we really look forward to bringing those forth to you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Cunio. I have a question and some conversation. One question I have is in regards to the other amount that you guys are talking about in regards to graduation or graduating seniors, and which comes to 8.6%. And so you're saying that amount is, they're not dropouts. So these are kids that maybe, let me think, like, for example, they have 2 high school requirements in their senior year, which would be econ and government. And if they don't pass one of those, and they fall in that category?
Somewhat. So it could be a couple of different situations. So it could be a student who tested out of high school, so they're not technically a graduate. It could be a student who maybe will graduate as a 5th-year senior, but they're just technically just not students who have graduated in the traditional 4 years by June of their senior year. But they haven't left school.
Okay, can you tell me how we're using the Adventa program in the high schools for those types of students that are instead of putting them through a 5th year, can we give them the Adventa program their senior year to make sure that they graduate on time?
Dr. Noguchi will come up. She oversees that program.
Okay, thank you.
So the Aventa program is in all of our high schools. This past year, there went with the increase of need for additional credit recovery, partly because many of the students over the course of the last 3 years have not had the opportunity to do summer school where they could get the credit recovery. We've increased the seats available to high schools to the point where principals last year in January, whatever they needed, we were able to fund, and we were able to provide that opportunity for them. So students currently, last year we had additional 400 seats, which certainly supported that increase in graduation rate. In addition, we also have, for those of you that have participated in the fall graduation, we have fall graduation at the end of each October. So I'm not quite sure what the number is this year, but roughly it's usually right around 120 kids. Now, those kids aren't part of the 4-year. They needed an additional term, either summer or Aventa, to be able to catch up and get the credits that they needed.
So who are those seats being offered to? Seniors or lower grade?
It's first offered to seniors, and then it's offered to juniors, and then it's offered to 10th graders, just depending upon the need and the number of seats at the school. Principals take a look at the capacity that they have. I mean, certainly they have to look at the schedules of the students and what they need and what the students are also asking for. At this point, they've been able to have whatever seats that they need. We put a little extra funding into that. Actually, Jonathan, we asked in the spring for some additional funding for that, and that was offered to be able to provide that support for all the schools.
So are you monitoring that at all of our high schools?
I do. Actually, Stefan Brown and Brandon Young really work with that program along with the Accelerated Academy, but I also oversee that department, but they are specific information regarding that.
I know that's a wonderful program to be able to get our seniors graduated on time. I just hope that we see more of them using it before they fail, and they're not graduating at all, and then they end up in that category of other.
Right, and one thing that I've seen, I mean, if you take a look at the graduation rate over the course of the last 2 years, we've had a significant increase, more than other districts in our region and in our county. Is that as a result of the Aventa? I believe so, partly because the kids don't just go to, let's say, an Accelerated Academy where they have to provide their own transportation and get themselves there. We've embedded it in every school, including the small high schools, so they have the opportunity to be able to do it on site, in addition to some small summer schools that we've been able to offer to them as well for those graduating seniors.
And this is just over the last year that you're talking about.
We've been doing it since I've been here. This is my 3rd year. We've had Aventa for the last 3 years, but it's been increasing as principals have gotten more savvy around providing opportunities within their schedule. For instance, I was talking to Greg Thomas just this last week about Aventa because I was looking at his master schedule, and I saw that he was actually teaching a course. I said, Greg, what is this? And he says, well, that's actually Aventa. I have a couple kids that would have otherwise been in, as an assistant in a class. In actuality, they're coming in and doing it during the school day and getting some of their Aventa during that time period too. So he's got three sections that he actually oversees embedded in the day. And I'm sure other high schools are doing that as well.
I'm really happy to hear that it's getting out there and
Okay.
the principals or administrators are becoming more savvy with it.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they want their graduation rate. I mean, part of the API graduation rate is huge, along with Casey. So that's an important factor. And we also need to make sure that our kids are graduating on time.
Great, thank you. The principals that came up and spoke were, a lot of them were talking about like the equal learning in classrooms and monitoring the classrooms closely to make sure that, for example, that the Father Keith
Buchanan?
Yeah, that's it.
Mrs. Johnson.
She talked a lot about that, about the equal learning, and so that way her staff was working really closely together in their
Collaboration.
My concern is with Common Core, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be, but my understanding is that with Common Core, we don't have materials right now, so we're just kind of like giving a plan to the administrators and saying, give this to your staff, this is kind of what we're looking for, and they have to make up their own teaching ways in their classroom. Is that correct?
Not quite.
Okay, and I said I may be wrong, so.
Not a problem. So the Common Core work is about developing. You are correct in terms of the current resources are not in alignment to Common Core. We will be doing a math adoption in March of 2014, and the state will be doing its adoption of ELA in 2016. So as a district, we will then follow suit. What we're doing in the interim is that we are developing units of studies here at the district office that we're providing our schools to help augment at the same time, because we really believe that the learning is the doing and the doing is the learning. So to build the capacity of our teachers, we're also asking them to engage in the process of developing units of study as well.
Okay. That explains it. Okay, well, I'll be looking forward to hearing how that's going.
Well, we invite you to come and see this in action with our teachers. We will send you our next cycle of professional learning. As I believe Principal Johnson and others mentioned, we engage in 2 weeks of professional learning last week as well as this week. And I believe next week we will have 2 days. So we invite you to come and actually see our teachers engage in the work.
That would actually be fantastic if you could send me those dates.
Will do.
Thank you.
And I'd also encourage you, Member Pritchett, to come to one of the parent forums where you can actually take one of the units of study, just as our students are. And also later this fall, we're doing a whole workshop on just the Common Core here at the board.
Good. I'll be looking forward to attending those. That's all I had.
Thank you.
We have Member Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Roberts, too, for that good explanation. I just want to add on to it is you might gain a deeper understanding for what the teachers are going through by going into the classroom and observing. Not a newer teacher, but newer meaning like maybe less than 10 years teaching, but go into somebody else's class who's had like 15 plus years of teaching, because we're kind of shifting back to the old way in which we used to teach. And then you could see those teachers immediately grasping on and the excitement that they have that they're actually getting that freedom again to create lesson plans and units of study and what the theme is nowadays. So it's pretty exciting to see their excitement as well. And then their leaders in the school for helping the other teachers come along who've been under this other system of teaching where it was very scripted. So, and then, just I want to celebrate the successes of the schools who have had successes. Of course, Miss Johnson, always my favorite. The selfish part of every part of my being wants you to move schools closer to me, so that way I can take my kids to your school. Unfortunately, I just can't figure out how to get them there to your school and then get them, to where they need to get to so I can do my things. But believe me, if I could, they'd be in your school. So now I have a few questions. I do, again, want to celebrate the success of Miss Vigil from Cal Middle. And by all means, the next statement that I'm going to make is, not in any reflection to her whatsoever. But I think that I would have loved to have heard from Miss Carrillo. I understand. But I think that for me, there's that curiosity of half of the year that they were undergoing an extraordinary amount of stress and concern. Parents, students, community, staff, faculty, the site leader, and they still had this increase in their academic performance. I think that's amazing.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to hear from her, because that's that curiosity point that I think we should all hear about, how she pulled through as a leader at that site and really was able to show the success. And you're absolutely right. We're blessed to keep her. And she's at a school where she's desperately needed as well. So I'm very happy to see that we did retain her services. But the other school that I thought that didn't get the recognition that they should have got for the amount of increase that they did, and given the population that they serve, is Capital City School. This is the only K through 12 school in this district. They serve such a unique population, and to see that they had such a great increase, it would have been really nice to have the board hear a little bit more in depth from the principal, from some of the faculty that work there, and the care and concern that they take as well over their students that come in. Same philosophy that Ms. Johnson has. Every child is here to learn. They have that mission statement when you walk in, and, you feel that environment, and it's geared towards success. And so I think that there's some really innovative things going on. And Ms. Noguchi, thank you very much for your interest in that school as well. And you're going to be great as our superintendent, area superintendent over that. So I think I would have liked to heard from those two individuals as far as increasing. Certainly John Morris is my area school, so I'm very proud that we had a 122% or 122-point increase at that school as well. And I'm glad that we have something going on there. So now my questions. So I had a parent that approached me the other day and was very concerned about her, I guess, so her senior student showed me their child's transcript, and it had, D's and F's. Freshman, sophomore, junior, very little credits to graduate on time with his counterparts. And so it concerns me that we're not catching these students sooner. And this was from a very well-going comprehensive high school that has a lot of students there. What are we doing to catch those students before they get to their senior year so that they don't come into that other category, fifth-year graduate? I'm really concerned about that. The identification part from either freshman or sophomore year, bring them into a credit recovery program, and then they can switch back out to the comprehensive school.
So it actually starts earlier than that. But we do, for the high school students, we have the Aventa program that has been really successful for us. But it's those critical transition years that are so important. And I think the movement towards, whole child, whole year, and providing the supports during that transition year, so 6th to 7th grade and then 8th to 9th grade, it really starts much earlier than high school. If your safety net is too far away and too big of gaps, then it allows the child to gain momentum and fall through relatively quickly. And so you have to make sure early on at the elementary level that that safety net is so tight and so close that the child doesn't have the opportunity to gain momentum to fall through. But when they do, you have to have kind of the backup plans. And that's with the transition, the work that we're doing with our youth development, not only after in our expanded days, morning and afternoon in the summer. So we're working on that. We have our Achievement Gap Coalition that we're really looking at a multitude of factors, and that will help inform, and we'll bring that in front of the board as well. And then you also have to look at the restorative justice work, the Restorative Justice Committee, and making that, board policy and administrative regulations. It's not one answer. It's a whole collective group of things that we need to do to make sure that our kids first don't fall through the cracks, and then if they do, what resources do we have? It's about not lowering the bar, but providing the right resources to get over the bar. I'm sorry?
No, yeah, I want to add, excuse me, I just want to add a couple things. And I'd like to ask Olivia and Roberts to chime in, but we've undergone now a multi-year effort around our graduation profile and really outlining it at each grade level. Call it social promotion, call it what you want, but I mean that's been the culture in this district, that students just get moved along. I mean, you and I, Member Rodriguez, witnessed it at back at Fern Bacon in that library that day, which led to it becoming a priority school and all the changes there. And so we've engaged in a huge effort. Dr. Roberts can fill us in a bit on where we are with the graduation profile, as well as adopting new graduation criteria, which, not only will it be the new bar at the high school level in order to graduate, but it will filter its way down so that students don't move on to the next grade if they're not prepared. Can you update us, Dr. Roberts? Thanks.
So it's with great pleasure to share with you that the graduate profile work continues to unfold. We have identified the various domains and indicators that really will demonstrate when our students are indeed ready to transition to their post-secondary phase. So what we're currently doing is we're looking at key benchmark years, and those are grades 3, 6, 8, 10, and 12. And so the Graduate Profile Committee is in the process of creating those specific indicators that will be in alignment with the overarching domains for us to be able to take a pulse check at the end of third grade to see where is Olivine in relation to these expectations. And so we will then have additional data that we can share with our schools to see, okay, now if Olivine is not in alignment with those expectations, what do we then do to intervene? So we are being very proactive and having an attitude of prevention instead of reaction. And so we're able to intervene in an in-time manner. So that's where the Graduate Profile Committee is currently. We are shooting for February, so we're in alignment with the Guide to Success. So those indicators will be embedded within the Guide to Success, which is the overarching balanced accountability framework for the district.
So the graduate student profile is keeping the end in mind. And then the site Guide to Success and the district Guide to Success will really help us with the reflective tool opportunity and the checks and balances.
I thank you, Superintendent, for bringing that to our attention. I really like it. And certainly it would help children as the one that was brought to my attention. In the interim, it sounds like this was got some time to get developed still. You're not February. You're not ready to roll that out.
No, but we're working very expeditiously to ensure that it is in place for the 14-15 school year.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good, yeah, because I think in the interim we might need like a little bit more of a counselor help at identifying early so that we don't have somebody in their senior year like with this overwhelming task. It seems daunting. Poor student, they're not going to graduate. They've got less than 100 credits, and they need 200 and some odd to graduate. It's just, almost impossible for them to graduate in June at this point. So your heart goes out to that individual. So if we could just be a little bit more this year until we get that awesome, I love that profile, love it. So thank you for bringing that. Thank you, Superintendent. And then just one question to see if I understand this correctly. If a student starts with SCUSD in the 9th grade, and then let's say their junior year, they transfer to a school down south, and they graduate, it counts as our graduation rate?
You have to come up here.
No, that's so. What I think you're referring to is the cohort graduation rate data. Am I correct? Is that what your question is
I don't
about?
know. Somebody just told me that.
Oh, yeah, no.
You want to explain it out a little bit more? So I can understand?
I can touch on that a little bit. I'll make my comments really brief, though. So the state of California, there's a very large research study that was done a couple of years ago that showed most children who were dropouts could, of course, be identified in middle school. So as a result of that research, the California Accountability Office put into place what they call the cohort graduation monitoring rate, which says that a child's or a student's cohort starts in the 8th grade. So the 8th grade is when we create the cohorts of graduates. And that is the number that is always reported back on in our overall district graduation rates and in the individual school graduation rates. We actually create the group of students that go into that number beginning in the 8th grade. And if a student transfers, then they're moved to the cohort of the district where they graduate from. So,
It's not our number then.
No, it's not. Darn it.
Well, good or bad, I don't know. I don't know about that. So, and with that, I'll just end with I like that our graduation dropout rates have decreased, and thank you, Superintendent. I think that there's a lot of innovative stuff that you did around that to change that number. So, thank you very much for your service.
Thanks. Certainly that's a huge team effort. And I would want to recognize, that as we've expanded our academies and pathways through linked learning, where learning has become much more engaging and real, as well as the built-in supports for our students. I think that's really reflected. So that's a huge kudos across the district, which is, again, that's become our high school strategy around linked learning. So please pass that on to the team, Dr. Roberts.
Vice President Kennedy.
I visited 42 schools so far this year, and 3 of them happen to be the schools that presented this evening. And I want to say to Ms. Vigil, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Higgins, who I think left, all 3 face very different challenges, but all 3 are just phenomenal. And I mean, you're on that campus and with those leaders and in those classrooms. Each one of them took a lot of time to take me around to classes and observe, teaching and learning, and just the environment at those schools. Again, 3 very different schools is a great credit to you, you principals and your staff. And I want to hope that you'll go back and with that message to your staff so that it's extremely impressive work you're doing. So thank you very much.
Member Pritchett.
All right, I just have a quick question. I brought up the econ government issue, and my question to you is there a way that we can look at having not both of those in the same year? And I don't know how it is with the whole, with teaching in 11th grade versus 12th, but, I got quite a few calls last year because this happened to my own kid, and people know me, and so they called me for advice because what happened was they were taking government their first semester, and then their second semester, they're failing econ. So they're not going to graduate. So is that something that we can maybe look at in the future?
We are in the process of doing that through the revision of the graduation requirements. And so the committee will be resuming, reconvening in the next few weeks, because we do know that currently our graduation requirements are not in alignment with our college career-ready expectations. So we would like to bring to the board in the very near future requirements that are. And so a part of that we will be addressing the senior year and how do we make that year more robust so when our students transition, they are indeed more successful. So that is a part of the conversation regarding the graduation requirements.
I really look forward to seeing those requirements. And also, if you have a committee that you're working with, I'd be more than happy to sit on that committee to work with you guys.
Thank you. We will reach out.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to give a little more context around that because it's related to our Sacramento Pathways to Success, our partnership with Sac City College, Los Rios, and Sac State. We're working with them to really, again, as Dr. Roberts said, to look at that senior year, and specifically for students that are behind. And we use the EAP assessment to look at students that are really ready for college or not. That their senior year can be either a way to, if they're not, to get them ready, a little more prescriptive, but geared towards getting them ready for college. And if they are, then the senior year can be more of an acceleration and a ramp up so that they in fact can be accelerated towards earning college credits in their senior year.
Oh, that's really great. I'm glad we're doing that because these certain cases that people that have come to me, there are students that have done really good their first 3 years of high school, and then their senior year they're having trouble. So I'm really looking forward to what we have to offer there.
Thank you. I just have a few questions in regard to the graduate requirements. Do we have a timeline for that? I know we've talked about this before.
We are hoping that by spring, President Cunha, we will be bringing those to the board's attention.
I appreciate that. I smile a little bit because we've had discussions about the graduation requirements and the profile, and I've made it known, but I'll make it known publicly. I do believe it's fairly key to what we want to see a student at the end of a K-12 education experience to look like, and the ability to back map from there. Yeah. I'll just say again, I think I've said it before, I really high expectations for the requirements. I know there's been some internal discussions and some, I'll be blunt, some pushback on what that means, but I really hope our district pushes the envelope on the requirements issue, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. In regard to well, I guess I can just ask you, Dr. Cummings, if you just had to say 2 or 3 things that we need to be doing in the next year at the district level that you think can improve achievement levels, what would that be?
Well, I think we know what works with our kids. I mean, we've piloted the right initiatives and we looked at, and the common themes are the high expectations, the belief in the children, the true belief in the children, it's not just a statement, it's a true belief, and really respect them enough not to lower the bar. I think that's definitely number one, pushing the implementation of the Common Core, and then just really helping sites, teachers and principals and district level personnel feel comfortable with using data and to inform where we go next. I think we have a really strong assessment, research, and evaluation team that we've put together, and they're working on right now studying some of our initiatives and our programs and the impact it has on, qualitative and quantitatively, the impact that it has on our children. So for me, I think those 3 key things. I think the Guide to Success with this graduate student profile will help us really have a clear understanding how the initiatives align and where our children need support.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I do agree a lot with the comments. I mean, I think from my vantage point, what I've wanted the district to do is to try to operationalize the high expectations, and I think we're starting to see that a little bit more over the last year or so. It's a good thing to talk about high expectations, and it's something I've seen sites can do, and some sites do it better than others. But I think from a district vantage point, and how you can ensure that all kids somehow get that message as you start to operationalize those things. So like Guide to Success that you talked about, and those things, I'm I'm very bullish on the graduation requirements. I think are a good step forward to tell everybody, look, this is what you're going to look like. This is the successful student that you're going to be when you graduate from our K through 12 public system.
I think it's so critical as adults, we don't close doors on children. As you leave and you graduate and you go out into society, you change pathways, and sometimes a lot. And what you think you want to be isn't what you end up being. So we need to keep those doors open for children. And when we lower the bar, we close doors, so that when children want to revert and choose another pathway, they don't even have the option because adults close the doors too early on them.
I agree. And I like the leadership piece too, that you talked about. I coming in as a non-educator, I had no idea. I thought that the importance that site leadership does have on the teaching and learning and the overall just kind of moral cohesion of a school and the direction that one person can have and the effect that one person can have on that. So I've really liked what we've tried to do around the principal leadership piece, and I hope that we continue to try to find a way to do that and kind of identify tomorrow's leaders and give them a space to grow and develop into those leaders.
We're actually having our aspiring leaders this Friday and Saturday, and then we have a cohort of, I think it's up to 23 of our teacher leaders, and they'll begin the Aspire. After that, we'll have a year-long Learn, and then our next phase is Lead for all of our principals, so we can differentiate the resources for our principals as well, just as we ask our teachers to do in the classroom for our students.
Great. And I guess since it's available, I'll give my 2 cents again on Guide to Success. Simplicity is better. Too much noise in the system, I think, tends to confuse people, and we need to give people strong benchmarks, but allow their talents to grow and develop around what we think should be the proper ends of our system. And I'll just end by, I was really heartened to see Principal Higgins here today. I don't know if she would want me to say this, but her path crosses mine in my day job. I have a lot of kids who I work for. I work for them actually. For kids who have a lot of the same issues and things that she sees at her school. So I've been to her school a few times. When I get a soft spot for one of my clients, I try to help them as much as I can. So I've been over there a few times, and I've always been very, very touched and amazed at the work they do with the population of kids that I think most people don't even understand sometimes, or don't even know kind of exist at times. And they do a tremendous job over there. And I know just from my own experience with one of my clients, just the amount of time, effort, energy, and grace that they used and they gave to that kid was something that I was very touched to see. And I know they do that with all the kids. It just wasn't because I showed up, So I'm very. I have a soft spot for the work that they do, and I think they do incredible work over there. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Superintendent.
Hi. So I don't want to extend the meeting too much longer, but I just have to jump in on a couple of things, and I'll ask Dr. Taylor to actually come up and address this. I see you there, Dr. Taylor, so I'm putting you on the spot. But if you could just come up and share with the board, because those 3 questions about what can we do to improve achievement, I'd like you to share some feedback that we received from that student group. Remember, in the spring at McClatchy High School, as part of the Achievement Gap Task Force, we asked them basically those very questions, and we heard from students. So there isn't anything better than to hear from students. And while she's walking up to the podium, I will say that our Aspire program this is the beginning of our leadership development pipeline, starts in earnest tomorrow at Pacific. They'll be there all day tomorrow and all day Saturday, and I welcome anyone just to drop in and observe. These are teacher and teacher leaders that have been identified by their school sites. We're doing it in conjunction, in fact, with the charter schools that are part of our compact. So they are invited to participate and send teachers too. And you'll hear more about that after the first of the year when Learn starts in. But to Dr. Taylor.
I think the students, in the feedback that they gave in the panel that we had,
very much echoed what the principal said. So one of the primary things was that just have high expectations of them, believe that they can, and then support them to do what we expect them to do. And then the second was around mentorships. I think pretty much across the board, they spoke about having that adult, whether it be a family member or someone that they could, that supported them, and just sticking with it and persevering and having hopes for them. Those were the two things I think that stood out from me, just believing in them, pushing them, having those high expectations, and then supporting them. They need role models. They all, several of them spoke about being in, whether they did internships and how important that experience was to them to be able to like do the work that they were interested in pursuing, and seeing adults who were in those fields and what the work was actually like. So I think that speaks to the importance of like linked learning and how that provides that work-based experience for students. So those were just a few things that they outlined.
Seeing no further questions, I appreciate the presentation. We have item 10.2. It's a lease agreement between the City of Sacramento and Sacramento City Unified School District for the use of the Fremont site. It's a conference item, a 10-minute presentation with a 10-minute discussion. Kathy Allen.
Well, good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Raymond. I'm very excited to share with you tonight our progress on a partnership with the City of Sacramento and the Studios Operating Company for the use of the Fremont school site. With me tonight is Richard Rich. He's the president of the board of the Studios Operating Company, and I think I lost Gail. Oh, she's right there. Okay. Come on up. Gail Carrick is the district's fine arts training specialist. Rebecca Bitter from the City of Sacramento was going to be here, but was unable to attend, but she was very instrumental in helping to bring this partnership forward. So we do indeed have a wonderful story to tell tonight. Starts with a very successful collaboration with multiple partners, focuses on arts education, showcases the planned improvements to a wonderful old facility, highlights opportunities for our students, and ends with a discussion of next steps. So this partnership really is a win-win for all parties. The concept began with a conversation between Richard Rich and Board Member Kennedy, and with the support from Superintendent Raymond, discussions began in January. So Fremont School was identified early as a potential site due to its availability, its historical nature, proximity to the downtown area, and the site does have some on-site parking for events. Site tours were arranged, and the excitement began to build as the vision began to look very promising. At the same time, we started discussions with the City of Sacramento, who will be the lessee in this arrangement. So this agreement is possible under Education Code Section 10900, which focuses on community recreation programs. Specifically, this section authorizes public corporations or districts to organize, promote, and conduct programs of community recreation that will contribute to the attainment of general educational and recreational objectives for children and adults of the state. So our focus is, of course, on arts education and how this partnership will provide much needed and exciting opportunities for our students. The housing of the E. Claire Rayleigh Studios for the performing arts at this historic building will symbolize the community's commitment to ensuring that all children have access to an education infused with the arts. The partnership and vision will be two-way. Artists will be housed inside the building, and then artists from the building will travel to our schools to enrich our classrooms with music, art, dance, and theater. Our partners in this endeavor are the City of Sacramento and the Studios for the Performing Arts Operating Company, known as the Company. Now I'm going to turn it over to Richard, and he'll talk a little bit about the renovation plans for the building and the vision that the company has moving forward.
Okay. Hi, my name is Richard Rich. Been involved with this project really for a number of years. I'd say 8, although the first couple of them were working at the Rail Yards, where we expected to have a new performing arts center. as we went into the fundraising for that project, the groups of artists that came and in support of that said, well, we couldn't possibly have a new performing arts center because the Crocker is being done, and you've got to wait for that to be done. And then after the Crocker was done, then the studio for the performing arts needed to be funded, and so we couldn't possibly have a performing arts center. None of that really registered because many of us believe that all of these things are positive. So we kind of jumped in on the studios for the performing arts to say, well, let's get this to happen. And we thought it would be a year or two, and then it would be up and operating. Well, the recession hit, a number of things came crashing down. The board that is the studios for the operating company is an umbrella organization for the ballet, for the opera, for the Philharmonic, and for California Musical Theater. Works as a kind of a clearinghouse, if you will, for the operational agreements that need to happen. As we moved forward, it became clear that we weren't going to be able to get the site that the city had given us. The funding was not there. Funding in 2008 began to crater, and so we started to look for other sites. We came across one site, a second site, a third site. Each one of them had a particular wrinkle in the deal that made it impossible for us to be able to secure the site and put it in. Ironically, I live across the street from the Fremont School, and I watched it sort of decline and close. And I was sitting on my porch, literally head in hand, saying, now what are we going to do? And the answer became obvious. It was sitting right in front. The school had recently closed. This was last June, I believe. And I was having coffee with Patrick. And we got together, and it became obvious to both of us that the repurposing of this school for an arts and education facility was a perfect idea. It was great for the arts organizations in town, the professional arts organizations. It was great for the city, which had committed an awful lot of resources to make this happen. And we thought and hoped that it would be great for the school district also, to be able to repurpose and have a successful story of repurposing, not only just a facility, but to repurpose it in terms of an arts organization, arts and education place, which, as I understand, and I'm not an expert, but budgets have been continued to be cut until there's a skeleton at best. Well, here's the whole facility that can augment that. So we think it could be a win for the school district. It's a win for the city in terms of their support of the arts. It's clearly a win for the artist groups themselves. So in taking a look at the facility, nothing is perfect. It was built in 1921 and 1923. The first part of the building works well for administrative offices. The blue piece on the to my left is a larger double-loaded classroom corridor, which is large enough that if we hollowed it out, we could put a series of studios, performing studios in it. Those studios would work for ballet classes. They would work for staging of opera and symphonic music, getting ready for the bigger performances at CMT. It really gives all four arts organizations some place to be able to sort of craft their game in an inexpensive, relatively inexpensive place before they go and start practicing at CCT, which becomes a very expensive proposition. So we're able to get low-cost performance areas that we will actually be able to have in-studio performances and be able to charge nominal amounts for people to come in and see work in progress. Frankly, I think it's the most exciting work that any of us do. And I would highly recommend, when you get the thousands of mailers from the ballet that says, come to our in-studio, to go see them. Because you sit in a room that is half the size of this, and the dancers are dancing full performances in sweats, but you actually get to see the effort that goes in to a lift. When a thumb disappears between two ribs, you never get to see that floating across the stage. But if you're actually in the studio with them, you get to see the effort and strength and the sort of sinuous quality of the dance. So we actually have in-studio performances. That will all happen in the blue side. The white side will be the administrative offices for marketing departments and those things. So we talk about the cost a little bit? Okay. The cost for this, we've had a couple of great organizations helping us really from the very beginning. Rudolph and Sletton, who built the Crocker and is now working on Sacramento Valley Station for the city, is friends of ours, and we were able to sort of hook them into doing work on a pro bono basis. So we've been able to start a series of estimates that started back in January, another one in March, another one in June, as we tried to refine the scope of the building to come into what we thought our budget was. We are very close to being able to do it without the last stages of design where all of the savings and all the real things are known. That work we authorized last week on the architects, so we're going to go forward at this point with construction documents. We need to get them in and completed and to the city building department before the end of the year. After the end of the year, the 2014 California Building Code goes into effect, and large costs start coming in. So we'll be able to have the architects do the work, have the contractors price the work. In February, we should know exactly what the costs are, and we will know when our budgets how far off we are from actually being able to complete the work. We'll start at that point, not earlier, with a specific program of going out to the major donors who have supported this project for the last 7 or 8 years and asking them to forward fund the second of 2 city ordinances. The city has given us an ordinance for $2.5 million, a second ordinance for a second $2.5 million once certain loans are repaid from the Crocker. That second comes in at 2017 or 18. We need that money to be forward funded, and so we will go to some of the major donors and say, here in a sense is the security for a loan that we need you to make us now. We have a dozen people that we would like to go to, and with that forward funding we will be able to start now and build out our entire program for the building. We need to open next September, which sounds like an awfully short amount of time for a public project. We've got some fairly aggressive people on the board, including myself, that say, no, that's when it will open. And so we'll find ways to make it happen. This is the first step. City Council will be the second step. Coming back here on the 7th, I believe, is the third step. And then the final step is City Council on the 12th. At that point, we will have lots of good news to go back out to our donor base, really just in a broadcast of, hey, great news, finally we are together. No more sailing of the vision, just the facts. And then once we have a construction contract and a hard cost guaranteed maximum price, we have more good news, more hard costs. We have then sort of had a program of outreach and contact to the donors for a period of 3 or 4 months, and that will then sort of open the doors to our final ask of the forward funding. So we're very excited about the project. All of the arts groups, the ballet, the Philharmonic, the opera, and CMT are on board. We meet fairly regularly. I can tell you we have board meetings about every 2 weeks where we talk about this matter or that matter. I don't think they had any idea what they were signing up to for such a small project, but we are right on the cusp of making this project happen after 8 years of trying. And here we are today, so about to fall into its future. I want to thank you very much for making this happen.
Okay, so this partnership will provide some wonderful opportunities for our students in several areas on an annual basis. We'll have 2-week summer camps for training in a multidisciplinary performing arts program by the company for up to 50 district students. We'll have a minimum of 10 unpaid performing arts internships for our students. Scholarship funds or subsidies to offset fees or costs offered by the company. The first 2 years, the amount of the scholarships will be $20,000. And then years 3 through 5, the amount will be $40,000, and then after the 5th year, the amount will be no less than $40,000. We will also have access to unsold tickets for various events at the Community Center Theater. which we'll be able to offer to our students and families. And we'll have office space at the property for a district staff person. And then finally, we will have the opportunity to appoint a person to serve on the company's 9-member board of directors through the term of the lease, which is 40 years. So kind of a little bit of a repeat here. So we bring this item tonight for you for discussion. And then, as Richard said, the City Council will hear the item on November 5th. We'll bring this back hopefully for your approval on November 7th. And then final council action on November 12th. As mentioned, work on the facilities to begin in the spring with the grand opening in September of 2014. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those organizations who, through this agreement, will provide these valuable programs to our students. We, of course, have the City of Sacramento, the California Musical Theater, the Sacramento Ballet, and the Sacramento Opera and Philharmonic. And this last group of three are collectively known as the Studios for the Performing Arts Operating Company, or simply the company. It's been a pleasure to work with them to move this project forward, although for me it certainly hasn't been 8 years. But we anxiously await the grand opening in September. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. We're available to...
We have public comment.
We have one comment on this item from Darlene Anderson.
Arlene Anderson, it sounds like a wonderful venture. But what I would like to say is the partnership between these organizations and the most highest poverty schools really hasn't existed in all the years that I've been here. So the benefit for 50 children, I don't even know what to say, where to start. That was a facility that was utilized to help children who had not graduated from your district, kids with disabilities and kids that just didn't graduate. But this district board chose to close it. And no matter how many community members came out and said, this is my one opportunity to have life, to support my family, the board chose to close Fremont. Now, as for the reuse, I don't see no public input. It's a wonderful opportunity, yes, but we're taking federal and state tax dollars and flipping it to where it's a benefit for a few people. And that's probably what happened with the reuse of the facilities that were recently closed, moving students so far away from their home that they benefit programs that the district created, so to sustain those programs, not the children who are failing and not the children who are not being successful. This is a horrible, it's like the tale of two cities. We have the poor people in Sacramento who live homeless and who don't graduate from your schools, who attend for 12 years, who have no life, who are dependent on public services. Then we have the elite 30% who get the benefit, and all the other tax dollars go to benefit those families. And they really enjoy life, and they're able to enjoy life. But this district feels no responsibility in ensuring that programs are accessed across the board. And this is not, it would be a wonderful opportunity if you could tell me how you're going to partner with all your schools, but you can't tell me that. You're telling me that you have to move really quickly, and this is a done deal because you have 4 votes that are going to carry this. 4 votes and no public input. And that's what I'm talking about. And it should be a crime, and it probably is a crime if somebody had the money to go and look at the regulations for the state of California on public-private partnerships and how you use state and tax dollars for federal tax dollars for children who were in a disabled facility who are no longer there. And you couldn't put kids there at first. So the reuse of the tax dollars that we just voted for, some of our money might go to fix this facility if the partners don't follow through. $1 a year, and that's where Fremont's going. That's how you're going to lease it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Kenny.
Yeah, I want to just, I think it would be highly inappropriate if I were to actually, Richard, Ms. Allen, Superintendent, reach out and kiss you right now. But I sure want to. I mean, we talked about this. It wasn't that long ago. And for these organizations, one including the city of Sacramento, one including a school district, neither of which are known for their speed just because they're bureaucracies. We are. But to make this happen and to be able to deliver, not only arts to the community, but more importantly, arts to our students. And with the services that this is going to provide for our students, as well as the community, in a site we couldn't educate kids in anyway. This is, to me, a huge success. I just, the only thing I want to say is thank you, and thank the city for me as well, for making this happen and kind of putting aside all of what we normally see as barriers and why we can't do things, and having the can-do attitude to get this thing done. So I think it's a great asset to the city. It's a great asset to our students, and thank you very much.
Board Member Hanson.
Thanks for the presentation. I had a few questions. One, I understand that the building was not earthquake safe, and so I understand that's one reason why this might be a very good use for it. So I know that's something that's very important. So I'm excited to see a repurpose of an abandoned building, but I do have some questions I'd like to understand. Maybe a couple different things. If I can ask what the value of if we were to lease the building and it was able to be used by, obviously not a school group, but just on the open market, what would we estimate the value to be? And I guess maybe we could use the square footage, that when we have to rent schools to other groups. Do you have an estimate of kind of the value of what we're providing?
Not off the top of my head. I could certainly pull some of our current leases and compare the square footage and then get back to you with a dollar
Yeah,
amount.
that'd be great. You can just simply email that to me and any other board members that might be interested. And I like the idea that sharing the tickets with the district. I think that's a good program, and I think there's going to be use to far more than 50 students. So I understand there's going to be a lot more value to that. I am uncomfortable, though, with a 40-year lease. I do think that as a public official going forward, obviously I hope to be around somewhere in 40 years, but I don't expect that I'll be sitting here in 40 years, and to make a commitment that far in the future, I am uncomfortable with that. So I'd like to have more information about why we chose that number, or why that you think it's the right number, why the district's looking at that. 20 years seems like a lot more reasonable. Obviously, I think there's a big value for doing this, and I'm open to be convinced on that, but I haven't seen the information that I'd like to see on that. I have no doubt that it's a good use of the facility, and I'm supportive of that, but I just have to say I am uncomfortable with the 40-year lease. And as someone who lives next to the Verge Arts, I get to participate there all the time. It's a great facility. It's a kind of a wonderful kind of a residency type program, which I believe that this is going to be the same kind of similar thing. So I think there's a lot of value to that. So I look forward to hearing more about it, supportive of the direction it's going, and I think it'll be a great asset for the city and a great use of an abandoned building. I hate driving by there and seeing such a beautiful building sitting there with the weeds in the front. So I think that this could be the very best purpose that we do it. But I would like some more information about the value of the lease, just so we understand and are transparent about what the value is for the community. I understand the city's putting in cash, and we're putting in a building that belongs to all of us. So I'd like to know the value of that. And then I think we should take a look at the term of the lease and see if that might be something. I know as a donor, if someone's going to want to be able to understand that the commitment that they make financially to help rehab the rooms and do all that, they want to make sure they get a maximum use out of that. 40 years just seems like a lot, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'd just like to get some more information on that. Thank you.
And if we could just remember any other board members have requests for information, if we just get it to all the board members so we all have the same information. Board Member Kovalchuk.
Thank you, President Cuneo. I was wondering if any of the studio spaces would be large enough for the Sacramento Youth Symphony. And would it be possible to include them as part of this transaction or lease? I'm not quite sure.
For the symphony, the Philharmonic?
The Sacramento Youth Symphony?
not familiar. How many players?
Director Newman. Well, I guess I could email the details. I was just wondering if you'd be open to including another group to this proposal.
Here's the way that, and the use of the space will evolve. We go in with a certain program of spaces, the ballet, CMT, the theater people, the Philharmonic, then the ballet. Each of them takes up a certain amount of space, and we assign usable space, and this is going to be one of the tricky parts of the question is there's usable space in the facility, and there's a lot of what we call load, non-leasable space. And so the ratio is so high that the renting of it becomes difficult in a traditional sense. But that aside for a moment. So you use the usable space, which is really the classrooms, and you fill those up with each of the organizations, and they occupy based on their needs. CMT may occupy sort of 8 hours a day. The ballet occupies theirs more like 16 hours a day. They're dancing all the time, having classes and people through all the time. The use that CMT has for performance space and the opera is fairly limited as they prepare for shows at CMT. What I'm trying to get at is that there's no one way that it works throughout the building, and there are seams that we can interject other arts organizations. Now, they may or may not have offices in, but they will have slots in the studios that they can perform in. Other possibilities is that maybe the arts organizations don't put all of their offices there, they put half of their offices there, which would then leave us some classrooms that would be unoccupied, which we could divide up into music lesson rooms, voice lesson rooms, those types of things. It's going to be dynamic. We have the vision about how it's going to start, and it will start that way. And a year or 2 or 3 into it, things change. The idea is that it will always be full of artists. Now, I heard the comment of wanting to have disadvantaged people being able to use the facility. I can tell you, I'm sitting on the board of the ballet, that every ballet dancer there, and there are 20 of them, are disadvantaged people. Their salaries, their annual salaries are $13,000 a year, maybe $18,000 a year. I don't know exactly where the poverty level is, but I can tell you that that's the amount of salary that those dancers who dance 16 hours a day earn for that right to be in the ballet. Now, I don't know if that addresses the issue of a disadvantaged part of the population being able to use the facility, but I can tell you that the artists across the board that use the facility are not wealthy, and that this facility will allow those organizations to become financially independent. And that's the whole key, is to allow them to do that. I don't know if I answered your question. There are spaces that are large enough, though, for the Philharmonic to stage their show before they go into CCT.
Okay.
Largest space is 33 feet by 60 feet. It's a little tight for them, but it can work.
That point was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a member Royal.
Thank you, President Cuneo. I do have a few questions, and some of them have already sort of been mentioned throughout this discussion. But I really want to understand what the repurposing process for a closed down school. Was there a need for 7-Eleven for this one particular? I mean, we're going through a 7-Eleven process because of 7 schools that we shut down. This one does not have to fall through that?
It has already gone through the process.
When? Yeah, I mean, it just got close to your.
I got here.
You've been on the board. Yeah. The repurposing of Fremont?
Yes.
Huh? Well, it remind me because I don't remember. So
So this was the 7-Eleven process when we looked at closing a bunch of schools during the 2011-12 school year. We had a 7-Eleven committee that worked for several months using all of the criteria that we had used, again, following the Department of Education guidelines when they had proposed a series of closures. This was when they had proposed moving West Campus onto the Sacramento High School site to co-locate with the Sacramento Charter High School. That was the 7-Eleven process. They also considered all the other facilities at the time for potential repurposing and reuse. And that report specifically talked about commercial uses, creating partnerships, innovative partnerships with organizations such as the city or arts organizations.
Okay, I mean, and that's very generic, and I understand that, but I mean, this is the first time that we hear it. And one of the main concerns that I have is if, and I hope we do, when we bring back adult ed to the district, right? That was kind of like a known site where people knew that that's where they could get these type of services. It's not like we have facilities throughout the entire district. It was centrally located, very accessible to serve a very important population that was quite wide in its range of services and how many people it touched and served. I mean, where would adult ed be placed? Should we, and when we, and I hope it's sometime not too far in the future, be?
Yeah, if I could respond, Member Rayo. So our adult ed programs are still alive and well, very robust at the Charles Jones Skill Center. In fact, I think there's been a sense that because we have such vertical alignment now between our ESL classes, our various classes, our ABE and our GED, that can flow right into our technical classes. I think many are seeing that it's actually a better alignment, and we're able to more effectively, in a long term, service more of our adults. So we've been able to keep it, and we see it growing there between offering daytime, evening, as well as weekend classes. So,
And I know that the Charles Jones Skill Center provides a valuable service when it comes to retraining and the training and workforce training. You mean to say that all the courses and sections that were offered at Fremont are now being offered at Charles Jones Skill Center?
Similar ones, yes, exactly.
At the volume, right? Or is the volume the same?
I can get back to you on the volume. Probably not with all the volume. Again, just given our resource constraints, but again, I think we're maximizing the use of that facility in terms of daytime, evening, weekends. There's still more potential to maximize that site, the Jones site. Okay.
I'm just, and then I'm going to be very blunt and very honest. I mean, it was extremely difficult to see the impact of the decimation of adult ed. And I know that, some of the programs are still there. I know that I got many calls, many emails asking when can we get some of these services, just the volume of students. I mean, students asking where were they going to be able to get their GED or finish their credits. I mean, just the amount of services that he provided. It seems that if I could have had my pet project decided and figured out, how to do it. And I think that this is a project that I wished would have come to the board. I mean, as we're deciding, it seems like it just gets decided. A couple of people talk. It gets decided. It gets brought to the board, and then it gets checked off. And I think that there is a lot of community input that is not necessarily being made part of this process. It's great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that everyone wants arts. I think what a lot of people in the community are asking, where was our input? I mean, I'm sure that if we open it right now to the community to say, what can we do with Fremont location, I think that there will be plenty of options as to what people would want given the needs that they currently have, or what we as an institution, because we as an institution, our purpose as a district is to educate right? I mean, it's great to partner and provide other services that I think are valuable to the community. Nonetheless, when we're talking about volume, when we're talking about the services that the community really is asking for, it seems like this was a very truncated process. Only a couple of people knew about it. This is the first time that it's presented to the board, and it's already cooked. It's unfortunate, to say the least. Thank you.
If I may just clarify a little bit on the potential reuse of the school site for the district purposes, we would have to find an alternative site for educational purposes because it's non-field act. So maybe just two different things. Program being brought back down the road when there's money is wonderful, and we could certainly find a site within the district to do that, but the Fremont school site wouldn't be necessarily available to be reused as an adult ed center.
I think that we just passed a bond not too long ago that could probably, that item, if a discussion been made openly, might have been part of that discussion, and those monies would have been available for making that facility compliant with the Field Act and whatever other deficiencies it may have had. Am I wrong?
Certainly possible.
Thank you.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Cunha. Member Arroyo, for your comments as well. I can definitely concur with a lot of his comments. However, I'm going to go on my own line of questioning. So first of all, I just would like to say that I have used, the services of our arts in the community. So have been to a Broadway series event and have taken all my children to an event, at least one, for the Sacramento Ballet. I do want to just state that out, that I am a supporter as well through the use of taking my own children to these events. But you alluded to something, Ms. Ellen, which was the Field Act, and that was one of my questions early on when I was reading this over during the week. And I pondered the question in this manner, in that if it wasn't safe for our children to be in it because of the Field Act issues, then, and I understand the amount of construction that will be done is to convert into an arts performing to support the performing arts that are going to be there, then we're also going to be allowing for 50 of our own Sac City students to be in there without these, what I can tell from the paperwork that was given to me, without these adequate modifications to be made. So if you can respond to that.
It is kind of ironic. If you think of it in terms of these children would be going on a field trip to the museum, which is not Field Act necessarily. So since it's still not going to be considered a K-12 educational facility, then it's okay for the kids to go there. I know it seems a little odd, but
yeah, it's
also okay if we put kindergartners there, but we can't put K-12 kids there.
I do recall something like that when we were dealing with a different issue a few years back. Yeah, it's odd.
It's odd, yeah.
Very odd. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, I would like to follow up on student board member Kovacic. I can't say her name. Still, if I didn't, make a mention of Mr. and Mrs. Newman in our community, I think that they're fine people. They do provide a lot of services to our community in a very selfless manner. And so I do understand that I believe his formal title is a conductor, Conductor Newman, does use our school facilities to perform services with our children. And just exactly like our student board member was describing. And there's often times where he doesn't have a site available to him. And so this would be a wonderful opportunity for him to gain some partnership so that he could have a solid place and a location for him to do this types of training that he does and do the work that he does with our children. Because I do know he does it with a full heart and with well intentions. I'd like to see if that could be included in this as well.
Yes, please. If you could, use the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. The best avenue for any artist or performer who wanted to have some involvement in the Studios project would be to contact Sacramento Municipal Arts Corporation, SMAC. Shelley Willis oversees that. We're using Shelley as the sort of the feeder of the community, because while we have 4 groups that may occupy 90%, there's probably 400 groups that could occupy 4% of the space and use the studio. So the 4 at 90%, those are the, if you will, the original partners. They're the ones that have invested the time and the fundraising to bring the money together, relationships with the cities. All of the others that folks know, I think really are sort of the bubbly goo of the city that really will, or the region that will really take and light it up. So we want all of them. I want all of them. I'm in charge of the studio operating company, so I get to ask for them. So Shelley Willis would be the person for them to contact. She has a list already of people that she would like us to contact, and we will be contacting all of them.
I do hope that the Newmans are on there, since they are using one of our school facilities currently.
Yes.
It would only be right and fair. The other thing would be going into a question that member Hanson asked earlier. I'd like to see, I understand there's first phase is 1.5 million of improvements, and then we have balanced that out with the $40 for the 40 years, and then balance that out again with our students that would be benefiting from the program to some degree. So I'd like to see that cost-benefit analysis. What is the trade-off? What are we getting for that type of return? And basically really our dollar, because we're really giving you $1 or giving you more than that. So what is the return on that investment that we're going to get over the span of those 40 years? Certainly you wouldn't want to make a decision in purchasing a house if you didn't have that type of benefit analysis or in any other investment that you would do. So I don't think that this board should consider anything less as well. We really need to see those analysis done so that we feel solid in our decision making. In respect to the kids, the children that would be selected for the camp, and then also the internships, where would those students come from? What does that look like? Are they coming from areas of low income and disadvantage? And if so, then how is it that they can be supported when currently as a board, we've eliminated many of the arts programs from our schools. In addition to that, when the further they are away from the Fremont facility, the least likely they are to have transportation. So if you can answer all of those.
I think I'd like Ms. Carrick to come up and answer your first question, and then she also has some information about some of the partnerships that we currently utilize, and then we can't answer them all. We'll have to get.
Yeah, and Member Rodriguez, while she comes up, please, I want to underscore we actually have worked really hard through partnerships to actually add art and music programs back into our schools. I mean, we're nowhere near where we need to be. I was on a home visit 2 weeks ago with a parent who was in tears because their school doesn't have any art or music programs. So we understand that, and that's what I think is at the heart of this kind of a partnership. I mean, it's there's this physical image of an arts organizations coming into a formal education facility, right? Arts coming into education, but education's coming into arts. So not only will this be a destination for our students, but artists now, but as part of this will expand, will actually be going out to our school sites and bringing ballerinas out to our school sites to show our children, what dance looks like. I think it's, again, as Ms. Carrick comes up, for a city like Sacramento to have major arts organizations is a true jewel and a gift. And I think right now we're actually in potential jeopardy of losing them. And if Sacramento were to lose, such a civic resource as arts, it would be a tragedy. So I think here is it's a unique opportunity to sort of strengthen, and more importantly, to give our children, so many of them that have never seen, a real chance to grasp what might be possible for them. It's like that spark. They may not be good in math, but boy, they can sing, and that's their passion. So I think that's what's existing, and I'd actually love for Ms. Carrick to be able to talk a little bit more about some of our art programs and our unique partnerships that we have.
Yeah, I'd like to start with telling you a little bit about a partnership we have called Ensuring the Arts for Any Given Child. And this is a partnership that we have with the City of Sacramento, through the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, or SMAC as you said, and the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. And Sacramento was the pilot city for this program, and we're in year 4 of implementation. And so we were kind of the proving ground, and we really struggled figuring out what this would look like and how it would work. But now we've become a model for 12 other cities in the United States that have formed these same types of partnerships through this same program. So the Sacramento Ballet and the Sacramento Philharmonic and the who's now with the Sacramento Opera, also the California Musical Theater, all of these partners that you've mentioned, we've all been sitting at a table together for 4 years now, and we have brought arts to the students of Sacramento City Unified School District. We did identify this past year that one of our weaknesses was in marketing, because a lot of people have not heard about this program, particularly even parents in the schools whose students are benefiting from the program don't know how it's happening. And so just recently the program has gone under the auspice of the Friends of the Arts Commission, and they're really working hard to bring other professionals into this partnership to help us with that marketing piece. And the director of the Sacramento Youth Symphony that our student member mentioned is actually now sitting on the board of the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, and she's also the co-director of the Ensuring the Arts for Any Given Child. So that relationship already exists. And one thing that this partnership has done for our students is each year, every single school in K-8 school, now Ensuring the Arts for Any Given Child focuses on K-8 schools because that's where the greatest need is. Many of our high schools have robust arts programs, but every single school gets to choose a performance to come to their site, and this will be year 4 for this. So we send out a roster and of the arts organizations that provide these performances for our students. And another thing that we've done in the past couple years is we've recognized that while it's wonderful for the arts organization to send a small group to the school to perform for the students, it's even more life-changing for students to be able to go to a full performance of the Sac Philharmonic or see a full performance of the Sacramento Ballet. And so through this partnership, that was one reason we asked for the tickets, because we knew that there's always tickets that are unused at the end, when it comes time for these performances. And we just knew that that would be an opportunity for our students that could change their lives, and for them to be able to take their parents to those performances could give access to members of our community who maybe otherwise wouldn't have access. And then in turn, it would grow the potential for the arts organizations to continue to provide these services to our community. So that's just my, the part. As I was sitting here listening to everybody, I realized that most of you may not have known about that partnership. And so when I was only been at one of these meetings, but it was when we decided what we would ask for our students. And the intention was to provide access to students who otherwise would not have access to these offerings. And it does state in here that the summer camp could possibly be at the Fremont site, but it might make more sense for it to be at one of our sites, and transportation was an issue that we spoke about.
In the selection of students.
Pardon?
The selection of students.
The selection of students would be something that we would like to involve all of our stakeholders in to come up with the way that we did that. But certainly financial need would be one of the considerations. And there's different opportunities here. So for example, the internships, Dr. Taylor mentioned how essential those can be for students, and feedback I had gotten from principals at schools where we have performing arts pathways is that this is one area that's particularly difficult for them to procure internships for their students. And so that's, something that would probably be based more on student performance than student need, whereas the access for the scholarships to take classes there, like dance classes, or to be involved in the musical theater, might be based more on financial need. But again, it would be the intention to reach out to a broad spectrum of teachers and community members to decide on a specific method for selection. And it would probably involve several different different measures of need.
I'd like to see, I would just be curious, like what that looks like before it gets solidified. I have sat on committees where we had to develop certain criteria, and I know that it could be developed a certain way to get a certain outcome. So I'd like to make sure that it's developed in a fair manner. And earlier there was a public commenter that came forward and talked about, equity and access. And so I'd like to see and ensure that the scholarships that would be provided are definitely provided with that same sense of equity and access. That would be my main concern on that. And you're absolutely right. One performance can change a child. I remember going to my first performance with my great aunt Amparo, who used to be a teacher here for Sac City, and that was the first performance I had ever been to. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have ever been exposed to the arts. So I have her to thank for it. So there is people in the community that are good people, kind-hearted, and they do care to expose children to a different side of life. And that's why I'm pushing so hard that these scholarships be given to the opportunities for children who would never be exposed to that stuff. Not just based on low income, but the probability would very slim. So my next question is my last question. I didn't see it in the contract or anywhere else in the write-up. Who's paying for the planning, development, the state architectural fees, all of that stuff? So if you can just make that clear. I didn't see it.
The funding for the project comes from three sources. One of them is private donations, of which most of the members of the board are contributing. That's the money that we're using for planning right now. That will take us actually through design, through all of the permitting and process that we have to go through on the city. It will take us right up into construction, so it goes through the bidding process as well. And then at that point, the city money will start kicking in, and the forward funding of the second $2.5 million will kick in at that point as well.
So I went and looked on the website for the project. So there's $5 million grant that came from the Rayleighs. So is that the money that you're talking about as well? Is that a portion thereof?
There's $1.5 million that we have in cash. We have outstanding pledges of, it's difficult to nail down how much of that will actually be perfected. So maybe another $350,000 and $5 million in pledges. So we have 6.5, 6.8. And that would be for the design, the construction, the contingency, landscaping. Probably not much fencing, but if we had money to fence, we would.
And I had just one more question. What does the city of Sacramento gain out of this? I mean, it's the way the contract is read is that we will be leasing it to them for $1, and then they will sublease it to the project. But there's no cost associated with that. How much is going to exchange? What's the consideration on that?
Is your question, are they making any money?
Yes. Frankly, yes.
They're making the standard application fees, permit fees, plan check fees, but they're not making any real money. Nobody's making any real money on the project.
So if I understand you clearly, they're not renting this out to the project for any source of money.
No. This is a project that they committed to back in 2007 and actually funded a different project at that time that, for reasons that involved 2008, never finished its fundraising. And so there was some money was raised, and the city put aside a lot of money. As that money stood vacant and empty, if you will, it was reallocated to the Crocker, and that allowed the Crocker to complete. Now it's time for some of that money to come back. The Crocker is unable at this point to pay it back. There has been a deal cut between the city and the Crocker for repayment terms, some forgiveness, some repayment. That's the second 2.5 that comes back. When that comes back, that money is then applicable to the studio project. A few years in the future, and we've got to be clever about how to find a way to get that money into the pot now, because just the structural work to create the studios inside the West Wing is, a ghastly expensive amount of money, but it will create great studios when we're done. So we bite that bullet, we put the money in, make the structural renovations, electrical, plumbing, do the abatement, get rid of the asbestos. I mean, all the things that, it's easy to talk about what we'd like to do with the school, but I'll almost guarantee you that bringing this school back, even as an adult school at this point, would be very difficult. We're running into all of those issues in terms of just trying to bring it back into a much less used facility, offices. And in order to do that, it's quite complex. And I know you deal with the state architect rather than the city, but I think the state requirements would be even more onerous. So when we think this building is going to cost $6.5 million to bring it back and make it a usable building that can then support the arts, that is, I will guarantee you, the least amount of money possible to create the best facility for the arts organizations. That has to happen now. And so we are pushing hard to make that happen for a couple of reasons. One, building codes change January of next year, and if we get caught with those, game over, right? We'd have to go raise a lot more money. The second reason being that the ballet, which is anticipated moving into this facility for many years now, is out of a lease next year. And they danced from the street back in 2008, and things worked, but we're trying not to have them dance from the street again.
Just a final comment. Member Arroyo alluded to this, and the first time the board should hear about anything like this shouldn't be in the agenda. There should be conversations happening there should be community engagement. That's the difference between an insider game and an outsider game. Don't engage yourself in too much insider game because you'll leave the outsiders behind, and then they grow the resentment. Then they grow distrust, and then they start accusing of non-transparent processes. This is a good. It's a good thing. It serves the community in the arts and in the public education. But you don't want to start setting precedents up where you're only dealing with inside people and then it's revealed. Because I'm pretty sure if you did ask the community, it would be a different outcome in terms of what their vision was for that particular space. And so certainly to bring along the community that is around the area is always the best course of action. And so that would be my final comments.
Vice President Kennedy.
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to just address a few things. First, when we look at comparable, leasing rates based on square footage, that's very misleading because you can't lease this building. I mean, it needs so much work. I mean, it's not ADA. It's not. I mean, there's so many code violations, and I mean, I've actually walked it 5 years ago with a developer who was interested in, wanted to take a look at it, and they said, "There's no way this doesn't pencil out. That you couldn't do it." So, it's not an easy nut to crack to reuse this building. The other thing is, as far as the arts go, I mean, this isn't. It's not just a cultural experience for kids, though that's important. It is something that can open up a door to a child's mind in a different way. And study after study has shown that the arts actually help student achievement, actually exercise a part of the brain that otherwise isn't exercised. And I do know that when I ran for re-election and I was knocking on doors, I heard again and again and again the travesty of having to cut the arts programs over and over again. And we're doing some great things right now, but it's not enough. And so here's an opportunity to do something with the community that is pretty darn cost effective for us as a district and deliver these opportunities for kids like Member Rodriguez. And I remember, it really changed my life to be on the stage at Pony Express. I believe you went there as well. At Pony Express, and it turned a kid that was turning toward being a juvenile delinquent into being an older juvenile delinquent. So I mean there are so many benefits here that I hope before it comes back that the board will consider. And the third thing I just wanted to point out that if we do end up having an opportunity to expand and we need a site for adult education in the future in the central city, we still have Old Marshall, which that neighborhood would love to see that reused as a school. It's just boarded up or fenced off right now. So we do have other opportunities should that arise. So I hope that the board will just consider those things in the next few weeks.
Member Arroyo.
Thank you, President Cunha. And I just wanted to make a couple questions. And then this is the difficult part of it, right? I mean, we have a district that it's, 60, 70% plus economically disadvantaged, right? And the parents that were being served by the former adult debt, and I'm still very much interested in that, is had a direct impact on the education and academic achievement of those students. Because once they learned English, every study has correlated when parents are better able to work with students, that kind of helps, right? So given the fact that we are presented with this plan, then the question for me is, what is the plan for access for the entire student population? For example, schools in my trustee area or in South Sacramento or in Oak Park. I mean, is there a plan that you can let us know? How are you planning to provide access or the maximum amount of access? Or what's the capacity of access? I mean, what are you envisioning? I mean, 50 students once a year, 100 students? I mean, are they going to be rotating? Given the high percentage of low-income students in this district, what's the percentage that will actually benefit from this investment or giving away this facility. And so I'm trying to figure out, how is this really going to benefit, quote unquote, the majority of the students that we profess to be interested in helping?
That's a great set of questions, Member Arroyo, and that's exactly why this item is coming tonight as an information conference item, so we can get the feedback and get the questions. And I can assure you that we will bring back a plan to show access and how students are able to participate in these various opportunities and programs before there's further action on this item.
Yeah, because from what I've seen this, I think it's going to come up for an action to be considered approval of lease agreement on November 7th. So that means that by next board meeting, we will have the up or down to approve this. So let's say that you provide the information, then we're presented with making the decision right there and then without necessarily knowing what that information is. So it's just it's an awkward position, given the fact that so little input has gone into the decision making of or what this project is to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, how many board members were aware of this project prior? Do we know, President Cunha?
Well, I can say that I learned of it at the executive committee when we decided on the agenda.
So only one board member knew about this project in the development and planning? Superintendent?
Well, I can say that I don't want to name names, but there are board members here that I have shared this with that are more than one. But I won't put them on the spot. But I can say that, again, there are, these dates aren't necessarily hard dates. This would be ideal. This has been in the works for some time, but as I said to you earlier, we'll bring back a plan to show, what the access is and how that can be determined and how it can be handled, and the various high schools that have performing art pathways that would be important for them to take advantage of internships.
No, I take that back. I knew about the discussions were ongoing with the city and with the arts, and before it came here. I didn't know the actual specifics of the contracts. I didn't know who was making what contracts with who, but I knew that discussions were ongoing.
I mean, am I the only one that has issue with not knowing about what was going on?
Well, I knew that because the school is right next to my area. I've asked about it in the past, and I understood things were happening along this line. I just obviously saw the contract recently, and I certainly would appreciate having more information as I asked my questions, but this has not been developed completely in a vacuum, and it is something that we discussed in the executive session.
I think one of the exciting things for me on the facility side of the house is that it is actually very nice to have interest in an older facility that really it would be very hard for us to do anything with. It is pretty hard to lease out older closed facilities, especially ones that do need a tremendous amount of work. So if there had been 3 or 4 interested parties, then I think the board would have been more involved in choosing who that tenant might be. But we get kind of excited when somebody does show some interest in utilizing some of our close school sites.
Thank you.
Remember, I don't think your comments are misplaced. I think they're completely valid. I don't know if we're lurching towards there was some grand conspiracy. I don't think that's true at all.
No. I mean,
I get the public
it's not
input
conspiracy.
piece.
I mean, it's not conspiracy. What it is the use of resources, right? We have so much need. We have so many competing interests. We have so many different issues that we need to work here in the district, right? So it's not a conspiracy. It's not that.
So is there something you would like to see? I mean, is there something positive that you can say, hey, look, this is what I would have wanted to have happened. If this is going to be the result, I would have rather seen X, Y, or Z happen.
I mean, as we assess the needs of the district, I mean, I go back to the population that was being served there prior. For example, I would have asked, if this is not going to come back as an adult ed, how many courses were being provided at Fremont? How many courses then are we really providing at the Charles Jones Skills Center? Is that really compensating for what we just lost at Fremont? The superintendent is mentioning that they're trying to figure out how to maximize Charles Jones Skill Center, but does that really cover? I mean, as far as I knew, people were coming from outside of the district to take adult ed classes at Fremont because the districts around us were not providing it. So in essence, adult ed was a moneymaker for us because no one else was providing it. And I think that educationally, which is this district created to do, it was providing services in an area that no one else was providing. So it was really an asset. And so for me, it's an issue of displacement of resources for a community that is vastly underserved with great needs. And when we're thinking about making facilities or resource use, I have to think of the entire population of the district and how many people are going to be served, how many are not, given the needs that they have. We just shut down 7 schools. So what I see is a shift of resources or facilities away from a population that is vastly in need. That need has not diminished. That need continues. And so now we don't have 7 schools. Now we don't have Fremont. What else is next? And then those resources are shifted in what manner or in what capacity. And I think that that's a very valid discussion that needed to be had. Not that I disagree with the value of this, but if you're asking me what would I be looking for is, that discussion. That's so fine. That we as a board can decide, is this the best result that we have for the population that we're trying to serve?
So would you like to see, I mean, I kind of feel like, okay, we're having that conversation right now, and you're making a valid point, a good point. Would you have liked to seen that conversation before?
Well, absolutely.
We got here? I mean, and what does it look like, though?
The proposal is, well, we're the governing board of the district, right? And we give direction to the superintendent. Ultimately, the community out there is looking at us and saying, well, what are you doing of the district? And if we are going to be making these kind of decisions, we as the board have to decide, is this the best asset? So you're asking, we'll bring it to the board, we decide. The proposal is to use it as X, Y, or Z. Potentially, this is the best use that we have. I don't know. All I know is that there's a population that has been displaced out of this area. We shut down adult ed. We are trying to sort of kind of keep it alive at Charles Jones Skill Center. I'm just looking out for the best interest of the people that really need the services that we're supposed to provide. And a discussion prior about, how we're going to allocate resources or facilities would have been good. And I am really sorry that you're now getting crushed in this dialogue, but this would have been a healthy conversation on the onset.
Okay. We have Member Rodriguez.
I just want to sum it up. What would we have liked to have seen is process. And I think that's what we failed on here. Excuse me.
Well, we were just remembering. So we were trying to remember. We talked about this in closed session, and I couldn't.
Whether we could even say that.
I couldn't remember, and then I was asking, can I say that out loud?
Right.
But we did talk about this in closed session without the content of what we talked about. This was brought up in closed session. Okay. We can all agree on that. So we all, whoever was in closed session, we all knew about it at that time.
Okay, so bottom line, it comes down to process. No one, and I think Member Arroyo just at the very beginning, his first time around speaking, had said, he has pet projects that he'd like to see develop all over this district. But, for one person to do this exclusively and then to bring it forward without informing the entire body that this is something that's going on. I know that we're all bound by Brown Act, but that doesn't prevent staff from having conversations with us, just to inform us, hey, heads up, this is something that's being developed. This is the 7-Eleven committee report. It was deemed surplus. This is the process. This is what this is. Communication, and that's where we broke down. And yes, I apologize. You're in the middle of this. But bottom line, it comes down to process. It wasn't followed, and those of us who were left out feel like we were definitely left out. I think the conversation up here would be totally different if we weren't left out.
Vice President Kennedy?
It's been clearly stated up here that it wasn't just one person I just happened to be the person who connected the parties because I was asked to, but it's been clearly stated up here that it wasn't one board member. You've heard that again and again, so that's a misstatement.
Okay, we talked that out. We all do that? Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming tonight.
I would just like to say
I'm sure
that-
you'll never want to come back.
No, this is not the toughest meeting that we've had on this project. So, but I appreciate the candor very much, and we studio operating probably need to take as much blame as anyone because we've been pushing aggressively because of our timelines. So we may have pushed board faster than was comfortable. I just say, not to be defensive, but in the defense of the project, you may have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 assets that are standing empty and growing weeds and right now. And here's one of them that there is a beautiful use for. And God willing, we will open it next year. So,
But I
thank you.
can guarantee you this is not the toughest meeting we've ever had either.
Right. No, that's right. I have actually seen tougher meetings you've had.
True. So if we can just staff the questions that were requested, if we could get the information to everybody, that'd be as quickly as possible. Would be much appreciated. So thank you. Item 10.3, approve the declaration of need for fully qualified educators for 2013-2014 school year. It's a conference and action item. Ken Forrest, it's a 3-minute presentation, 3-minute discussion.
President Cuneo, Superintendent Raymond, we have a very quick item for you tonight, we hope. Unfortunately, as you know, we sometimes have difficulty filling all of our positions, and under the Education Code, we are required to declare a declaration of need. This provides us the flexibility to bring forth waivers to fill positions in specific areas. So a very quick slide. Yeah, that's it. That's the slide. That's the reason. It's late. I apologize. And we ask your approval.
Thank you. We will have our public comment now.
Public comment on this item from Tony Colley-Perry.
Good evening.
I have to say, it's nice seeing you up here. I thought I wanted to be there, but then I realized I'd do better out here.
You're not alone.
Well, part of my challenge is, I've learned a lot along the way. And being a parent and being a parent advisor in Sac City Unified School District prepared me to understand how little people know about how to create a citizen. This board has a responsibility to create engaged citizens, not just students and not just teach education. The biggest challenge that I'm seeing that we're facing is that 70% of the students never really get a chance to have a life. And when does the district take responsibility for the students that need an education? I thought this would be the best one to choose because I myself graduated from Kennedy High School with a 1.9. I had to go to college to realize that I was a 4.0 and above. Nobody in this educational system ever gave me anything. Not a job, not mentorship, not support. I wasn't even considered someone that could even meet the needs of going a success. So what does that say to me? When you talk about a qualified teacher, there is no career lattice in this district. I have seen many good teachers. They all didn't have to have a degree. I did not have to go to Sac State and get Phi Kappa Phi to be a teacher. I always knew how to be one in my community. And what we do at leadership here is just not even to be fathomed how many people I've seen of good teachers that don't get an opportunity to teach. So I just want to say we need a career lattice. We need to give people real opportunities in this district. And I really hold you accountable because the superintendent will be gone. We've given so many superintendents unlimited income. They go and come. But nobody ever invests in the people that live in the neighborhood. And how can we do that? I charge you with that responsibility. I do plan on thinking about it a little bit more after tonight. But thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back. We have Member Hanson.
I'd like to move this item.
Okay, we have one board member who'd like to comment, Vice President Wu. Did you want to comment now, or would you like to wait? Sure.
Thank you, President Cuneo. On the last page, Ken, Mr. Forrest, page 3 of 3, efforts to certify, assign, and develop fully qualified personnel. Are we really limiting ourselves to the Fortune Schools, National University, and CSUS in terms of our participants in the internship?
No, those are programs that we currently have interns working in the district in. We have just over 40 interns right now working in the district. Those are some that we've used recently, not all.
Because I seem to recall that when we're searching out for bilingual teachers, we're also reaching into the Bay Area where there might be a larger community of Mandarin speaking or Cantonese speaking. So I was wondering why we're limiting ourselves to these, but these are existing programs.
Correct. We actually also have interns from Southern California, from different universities, not just those.
So you might want to list those to be a little bit more inclusive. Thank you.
Vice President Ken.
I just want to follow up on that. Isn't it true that not every school of education offers internships, intern programs? I mean, some offer student teaching, which is a completely different thing. So that's another reason why it's somewhat limited. There's not a huge availability of intern programs.
Correct. And actually, the only district intern programs in our area would be the Fortune Schools and Project Impact.
We have a motion on the floor to move the item from conference to action by Member Hanson, a second by Member Arroyo. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We are in action. Seeing no comments, would someone like to move the item? We have a motion by Member Arroyo to approve the declaration of need for fully qualified educators for 2013-2014 school year. A second by Member Hanson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11.0, business and financial information and reports. They are received. 12.0, future board meeting dates and locations. I think now would be a good opportunity to ask, do people want to continue with the October 22nd closed session meeting that was scheduled to evaluate Superintendent Raymond's performance?
No.
Okay. Member Pritchett? Member Arroyo? Vice President Kenny? Vice President Wu?
No.
Member Rodriguez? Do we want to have the October 22nd meeting in light of the superintendent's resignation?
I'll go rogue, yes.
No.
So we will formally cancel the October 22nd closed session meeting. We do have two open sessions coming up, November 7th, 2013, as well as November 21st, 2013, 4:30 closed session, 6:30 p.m. open session here at the Cerna Center. Student Member Kovalchuk.
I'd like to motion to adjourn this meeting.
I will second. We have a motion by Student Member Kovalchuk to adjourn the meeting, a second by myself. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned.